Well, it's been a quiet week here in Lake Scabagon, my hometown. This week they welcome fellow podcaster Matt Kelly from GeekscapeTV and talk about music, why the iPod is superior to streaming, weird-ass movie nights, DC talk, Christian ska, more music, play some Squid games, and Brock and Pete get very excited about Earthsuit in the Mute Math Corner.
Brock, your picture behind you makes me think of is the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, where
totally.
yeah.
Yep.
He's
I'm
looking at the ocean,
about to fall into
that's
this
where he
picture. Yep.
Yeah, so stay with us until we're done. Yeah, or unless the camera works there and you can go live.
Yes. Well, I'll fall into Narnia, but I'll take my smartphone with me.
Perfect.
Something that hasn't been done yet.
No.
As far as I know. I mean, to be honest, after the last battle, it doesn't seem like anybody's going to Narnia, right?
Probably not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless you can go to an early period of Narnia. You don't seem to be constricted by time when you travel to Narnia from this world.
Right.
So you can get it. You might get lucky with the era you fall into.
Yeah. Yep. Well, they've made multiple documentaries about the same story. I feel like it's happened over and over again.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. So our guest this week is Matt Kelly from GeekscapeTV. He's the host of One Hit Thunder, Weird Al-Gorithm, and a bunch of other podcasts. He also has a brand new podcast called Cringe, which is fantastic, and we definitely recommend that you guys check it out, especially, if you've been following our show and you enjoy that.
Do we need to organize in any way, or are we ready? We just let him in and let it rip?
Yeah, let's let him in, let it rip. I kind of feel like this is going to be one of those conversations where it's just like a bunch of old friends picking up right where we left off, even though we've actually never met before.
All right, here it comes.
Matthew Kelly.
I don't think he heard that.
Matt Kelly. Should I keep on saying that until he's here? Say it 3 times. Yes. Matt Kelly.
Oh, no, it's like Beetlejuice.
There he is. Hey.
There he is.
I went to click join audio, and instead I clicked audio test, and I just had to go through all of their test questions.
Yeah.
I was like, great, I'm trapped.
Did you pass the test, though?
I did. I passed enough to jump on.
Hey, well, my whole computer just totally shut down before you came on, so I'll be joining again too.
I had a in December I do a 24-hour live stream event to raise money for Big Brothers Big Sisters, and this past year was definitely the ooh, I might need a new computer before I do this next year. I had the laptop here because it was constantly shutting down here, and then I jump on the laptop until that would shut down and jump back on the desktop. And I was like, this is too much work. I'm just bouncing back and forth between two, as the Apple specialists love to tell me, geriatric models of Macintosh. Yeah, they're older than 4 years old, so they're practically geriatric now.
Put them in a home.
I know the feeling. I think my Mac's about 9 years old, and it's hanging on for dear life. So
yeah, they really truly get to that point. But it's I don't until I'm legitimately afraid that something I'm working on will be deleted beyond repair. I'm just gonna ride it out because every replacement's $2,000. I don't
right.
All that podcasting money. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Matt Kelly, I'm Brock Dittus. I have all your albums.
Yay!
I realized I listened to at least 3 of your podcasts.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, when you have about 40 of them, it makes it a little bit easier.
Oh, dang! All right. Well, my what is it? My fractions are way off, so I'll do better.
So one note is I am the primary caregiver for my children tonight, and I'm not making them watch VeggieTales, so they're running amok. But I'll be in and out. I'll have the earbud in the whole time. Other thing I wanted to thank you for
morals.
Exactly right. I wanted to thank you for One Hit Thunder specifically because I had a bike tour in 2023, and I think I listened to everything that had been released up until that point. I was like, let's see what this show is like, and it was so good that I just kept on listening. So you got me through 5 days of solo bike camping.
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you. It's crazy to create podcasts that people care about after a decade of creating podcasts that no one cared about. It's
persistence. You got to keep at it.
That's pretty much
Slow
all.
burn.
That's the name
Keep it
of
up.
the game.
You can do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, I can tell you, I started listening to the Christian Cringe, and then I go, wait a second, how do I know this voice? And then I realized that I'd been listening to One Hit Thunder because of Krista Makes a Podcast. And then I went, wait a second, that's how I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the whole Matt Kelly universe.
Yep, right, exactly.
Someone they called it someone messaged me one time and they're like, I listened to the entire Matt Kelly podcast universe, and I was like, oh, I guess that is what it is. There's just like this world that's like, here's all the things I like.
But you're on the same level as Marvel. Yeah.
Exactly.
It lines up with what I like. So hey, there you go.
Yeah,
how
exactly.
we got crossover events constantly.
Yeah, I mean,
Love it.
and we were talking about Weird Al in an earlier episode of our podcast on one of our tangents, and Brock said, "Oh, have you listened to this podcast, Weird Algorithm?" And I'm like, "I have not." So I jumped on at that point, and then a couple months later, then you get the Christian Cringe preview, and I'm like, whoa. I was like,
seems like we should be friends with Matt Kelly. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And like, I'm always happy to make new friends. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's worth noting that Kevin, I think you and Matt probably have similar size CD collections.
Yeah. So you can't see any of the CDs back here, but if I duck down, you can see like a portion of the DVD collection behind me.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I have multiple Word docs to keep track of everything in case of a fire.
Gotta make sure the insurance company knows what's
exactly.
Yeah.
It's literally the only thing I have a track record for insurance policies. It's like, I need these. I need to replace my Carnosaur trilogy.
I've started my document because of that. Yep.
Yeah, it's important. But I have to my girlfriend's chagrin, the entire laundry room is filled with shelving units of CDs.
Yep.
Because I'm like, I go to them lease, like I will pull the DVD off the shelf and watch it. Once the CD's ripped into the computer, it pretty much goes on the shelf, never to be touched again. But every once in a while, I might need to consult liner notes or something for a podcast. So it's like, I can't get rid of them. No one's uploaded that stuff into some website for me to utilize.
Well, and frustratingly, I came up against this yesterday that like Discogs has a lot, but it doesn't have everything. And some of the stuff you want to know, just, you got to have that. If you don't have it on the shelf, then you'll be lost. That's what I tell my wife. I need these to be whole in the future.
The other thing that people are typically blown away by with me is that my primary music listening instrument is still the iPod that I've had since high school, that I've kept it going. But like, my argument is like, yeah, I'll listen to stuff on streaming. Like, I'll listen to stuff on Spotify or whatever, but Spotify doesn't have like my friends' high school bands demos if I want to listen to those on a drive. Like it's the only way I can like constantly have all of the options in front of me.
Some of my favorite music is the stuff that doesn't exist online. It's just like no one else knows this. Yeah.
100%. When
I don't want to lose that. Yeah.
When I was in college, I was like booking 2 to 3 shows a month, just like in my local area with local bands. And there were some like amazing bands there was a band, and I think they actually do have their music on Spotify, so they're a bad example, but there was a band called the March Hare that like, they were one of those bands. If you've ever been to a local show, I feel like there's always one of these bands where as they're playing, all of the people are outside smoking cigarettes, except for the other bands who are like, this is the greatest band I've ever seen in my entire life. And they were like this 5-piece band. They were all like art school stoner kids. The bass player went on to be Schoolie D's touring bassist, which I think is like insane. Geez. But it was like he played like a 7-string bass. They had this drummer who was trained in jazz drumming. They had a guy who played guitars who had like a foot pedal rack that was like the size of a computer desk, like with all these different effects. They had another guy who played guitar and then had like a 5 rack of different keyboards and Moogs that he would play. And then their 5th member was this tiny little Asian woman with dreadlocks who played violin and was the screamer in the band. And all 5 of them sang. So they would do these beautiful like 5-part harmonies, and then it would just go into a crazy breakdown, and then it would like go into like a disco sound. Like they just like would bleed all these genres together, and they were the best live band I've ever witnessed. And it was one of those like, they formed the band their junior year of college, and then senior year came and the band just broke up, and that was it. Like they did one album and and off they went. But it's still like one of my most listened to records because they just put on like a hell of a live show. And it's just like stuff like that where it's like, they're the exception. They are on Spotify, but like a lot of those other bands that I have 3 or 4 years worth of memories attached to, it's just like burnt CDs on a spool rack. I've got piles of these all around the house.
Yeah, it's same thing with me. Like I have a ton of CDs from when my old band was on tour, and there are all these no-name bands that nobody knows. Like some of them, ended up, putting out a couple albums, and other ones it was there was just that small demo CD that they put out that they had on tour, and that's it. And there were some really good songs on some of those.
I have a box, literally, I'm looking at it right over here under this table. So one of the regular guys who's on One Hit Thunder, who's a good friend of mine, is Matt DiStefano, who played under the name Team Goldie out in Philadelphia. And he was a multi-instrumentalist, so he would record every instrument onto a track, and he would literally tour with an iPod, and he would plug it into the soundboard and then would just like sing and rap over top of the music that he had built in his bedroom, playing every instrument. And he was like doing pretty, like he was being scouted by like Fearless Records and Hopeless Records. Like there was a point where we thought he was going to be like the guy from our local scene to like blow up. And for my birthday last year, he gave me this giant cardboard box. And he's like, here's every demo that every band gave me when I was on tour for the last 7 years that I'm never going to listen to again.
Thank him.
That is a gift.
Yeah, he's like, I know one person who's going to actually listen to these. And then like handed them to me. And I was like, yes, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always, fun kind of digging through stuff like that just to see like some sort of hidden gem that like,
that's where like One Hit Thunder came from. Was like I would go to UCD stores and I would just buy these like dollar bin albums that I loved. And it was like, I think I've said that it was Sean Colvin specifically, but I was like listening to one of these one hit wonders in the car. And I was like, there's so many good songs on this album that no one will ever hear because all they know is this one song. Sure. And I think it was that. And then like, I just fell absolutely head over heels for everything that Semisonic had ever released. And I was like, I want a podcast where I can like, even if only like 1 out of every 100 people that listen end up going to listen to more songs from that band, like help get some of these songs out there. And that's where that podcast stemmed from. And I was a big fan of Punchline, and I like Chris Fios had been doing his own podcast for years called Men in Their 30s Only that I was a fan of. And they had like Chris turned 40 and the show stopped existing. And so like I reached out and was like, hey man, I've got a podcast. Boy, do I have a podcast proposition for you. I think was like literally how the phone call started. And yeah, he was into it. And I was like, let me just bring my soundboard to you in Pittsburgh. Like contact some of the guys in Punchline, contact some of your other friends in Pittsburgh, and like, we'll make a weekend of it. We'll record like 10 episodes and see how it feels. And we did the first 10, and it's funny because you listen to those first 10, it's a very different show. Like, I think it wasn't until like episode 50 when I became co-host. I was just like strictly producer behind the scenes. But then like Chris would be like stumbling for like a factoid that I'd given him in the notes, and I'd just like be yelling it from the background. And he's like, just get on mic. Like, just have a microphone. But yeah, I mean, like a lot of I want to say like 90% of everything I've done as a podcaster has been like, I want to be able to share things that I think people would like. So it's like, it started with like horror movies. I started horror movie night, and it was like, I just want people to find out about some of these obscure horror movies that I love. Like, not enough people know Sleepaway Camp or Alligator. And like, right. I'll make this podcast where I can talk about it. And that was where One Hit Thunder was born out of. And then like with the Weird Al show, it was like, I want to show respect. Like, I think that there's such an artistry to Al that gets buried under the, like, he's so funny. And it's like, no, he's more than just that. Like, it was just it was a lot of that. Someone told me that my brand is like, every episode starts with a nugget of an idea. Like, it's like, oh, this episode's about blank. And then it's just like, where does the conversation go from that point? And like half the time, like there's episodes of Horror Movie Night or One Hit Thunder where we don't even fucking talk about the movie or the song for a solid 15 minutes. But like those also then end up being people's favorite episodes at the exact same time, because it's like, oh, wow, that was a weird tangent and I was really into it. Like, I don't know. I just think that there's an art form to conversation that I didn't know I had until I had failed at podcasting for 10 years and then like found the method that worked properly for me.
Perfect.
Hear that, boys? Just 9 years to go for us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's listening to just some of your episodes across the various podcasts and just hearing it when it turns like real conversational and then you have those tangents, that was really what drew me in and was like, we got to hang out with this guy. We got to get him on to just hang out and we'll see where the, conversation goes. Cause
that's how we operate.
Lord knows we've had some insane conversations with people.
Well, then I'm like really happy because Christian Cringe is like actually starting off pretty good. Like I'm like, oh, these are respectable numbers for like a show that I really didn't advertise.
Sure.
Because like that stemmed from like there's a podcast out there called Good Christian Fun that's hosted by Kevin Porter, who did Gilmore Guys. And I loved Gilmore Guys. Like possibly, if not my number one podcast of all time, it's in my top 5.
Cool.
And I was like, oh, that guy's doing a podcast about Christian media. Like, how can this fail? And that show just never did it for me. And I couldn't quite put my finger on why. And I think it was because it tackled a lot of the CCM, which like for sure we're going to cover that on Christian Cringe, but it did like kind of ignore what was my version of growing up in like the Christian household, which was like the Tooth and Nail and the 5-minute walk and like
that's all Amy Grant and that stuff. Yeah.
And I was like, no, I want to do something that like still has space for that. I still want to have space to talk about Carmen. And like, we're going to record an episode tomorrow on McGee and Me. And we're going to do for February, we're doing 5 Iron February.
Nice.
But like the episode that comes out this week, quick sneak peek for you guys. But like the episode that comes out this week is Katie found a 4.5-hour playthrough of an NES game she used to play called Exodus Return to the Promised Land.
No way.
Like, and it was like her talking about like the history of Christian gaming in the 80s. And I was like, a world I knew nothing about. Like I had no clue that this was a thing. And now our guest, who we actually had our friend Eric on because he's Jewish, and we're like, well, Exodus at least covers like his side of Christianity. So,
let's see if this stands up to the historical record.
Exactly. He loved that game so much that he found all of that company's games on Steam Deck, and we're like, let's live stream us playing some of these games over the next couple months.
So they're available.
They're still available on Steam.
Wow.
But it's like, that's the stuff where it's like, that is what I think Good Christian Fun was missing, was like the wide scope of it. Like I was so thankful that Katie early on was like, let's do extreme days. Yeah. Like I saw that cover at every like creation festival for 5 years, but never watched it because like, I was just of the mindset of like, no, the Christian media machine is mostly not good. and I was like, I'll just watch without a paddle, thank you very much. Like
partially filmed in Oregon.
Yeah, but like I was like, okay, this was actually not as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But I am excited to look at those people. Like I remember seeing a movie in theaters and not realizing it was a Christian film until like afterwards, because my friends in college, we would just go to the movies every Friday night to see something that had gotten released. And it was a particularly slow October with nothing to watch. And we're like, what's 3? And we went and saw it. And 3 is like the Christian attempt at 7. Is
it Virtues instead of Vices?
It's like a straight up slasher movie, but it's like a Christian movie. But if you've ever seen Adaptation with Nicolas Cage, It is the exact plot line that his brother is pitching, where he's like, the killer and the detective are the same person. Like, it's called Three because the one character that you're following is actually three characters. He's the killer, he's the girl that he's trying to kill, and he's the detective, which makes no sense. Like, the logic.
Haven't you ever heard of the Trinity, Matt? Do we have
The
to
unholy
Trinity
Trinity
explain this to you?
You
It's
know
like
what?
an
It's
egg.
yeah.
Or a stool.
It's been a minute. Remind me of the trilogy, the Trinity trilogy.
The trilogy. There's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. The trilogy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
the Trinity. I see what you did there, Brock. That was good. Yeah.
The Hope, the Empire, and the Jedi. Got it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I will say. I wanted to just
9, 10, 11. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, Matt, you brought up Good Christian Fun, and I will say they got there first. Like, I don't think anybody else was covering the old Christian culture stuff from a kind of a retrospective lens until they did. What I think what you were saying is true, that they kind of got a pretty narrow slice of the pie in terms of it. I do have this, which I got because I was listening to Good Christian Fun, and that's Mark Allen Powell's Encyclopedia of Contemporary Christian Music. This does list the Tooth and Nail bands, by the way.
Can I ask you a question? Because I think I live with someone who had that book. Or like I used to go to the house of someone that had that book. Is that
Do
the
I have
one
their
that,
copy?
Well, I was gonna say, is that the one that like erroneously also has like U2 and Collective Soul in the index of contemporary Christian bands?
Oh,
Wait,
interesting. I should
not?
look
No.
and see. I'm
Like
gonna look it up. I'll find out.
because I think there's one of those books where it's like all of the CCM bands, and then it was like they tried to sneak in like a few modern bands that had like the slightest bit of spirituality to be like, and Collective Soul, obviously beloved CCM band.
Oh, haven't let your light shine down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look now.
Oh, no, that's in my head. Great.
Listen, they have a couple good hit.
A couple good hit. That's good. I saw it. Yeah.
I was a fan.
I saw him open up for Foo Fighters. Foo Fighters. I don't know why I said it that way. Foo Fighters. I'm channeling my inner Christopher Walken.
I was going to say it was real Walken
there. This summer at Fenway Park.
I mean, their self-titled album is actually a banger. Like, in my opinion, the one that has like December and World I Know and Gel, like that's a really good record. The one with Shine kind of sucks. Like, it's just, and I think they've admitted to it as well. Like, they're like, it's demos. Like, they didn't even let them re-record it. It was just 12 bedroom demos that they immediately put out. So I think even they've said like the self-titled is what they consider their debut album. They're like, no, this is like where we actually were signed to a major label and recorded songs.
Right.
Yeah, real Collective Soul head over here, actually.
They're great. No, this does include Collective Soul. I need to read the entry to see. It probably mentions something about the contested status, but I haven't read the whole article yet.
Yeah,
I might by the time we're done.
I love it. I got a question for you guys, because obviously this is based on a little bit of Five Iron Frenzy.
Yeah.
And Five Iron had like their whole moment recently, and we'll get to what I'm talking about in a second. But do you remember the first time that it dawned on you? One of two things: A, the first time a Christian artist maybe cursed on one of their songs, or B, when you had the realization that a Christian artist was no longer Christian. Because I remember for me, all of those things happened when I already had kind of stepped out of Christianity, and there was still a feeling of like sadness for me. Like, I was like, whoa, how could this happen?
And I look up to these guys.
Yeah. Like, did that happen to anybody else, or was I like alone and being like slightly agnostic, but then still feeling really sad that like the guy from Calbretto 13 was like cursing like a sailor on his new band.
Oh, on Harley Poe.
And
and now like Harley Poe's like one of my favorite bands of all time, but like that was like a real like, wait, what happened? What happened to Joe?
Yep.
The guy I used to know.
Nice reference. No, I think I always kind of followed him as wayposts. Honestly, I wasn't super disappointed. I was kind of intrigued almost. Like Pedro the Lion for me was both. That he kind of both made his exit from religion, organized religion, and he did a lot of the things that Christians aren't supposed to do. And so for me, I think I was always intrigued because I was aspiring cursing Christian, since probably the time I moved out of my home, and nothing like Bible college to make you want to curse, I think. So that was kind of my thing. But I do know what you're talking about. Kind of like that. Well, this guy used to be a stand-up guy. Like hearing an interview with the guy from Grammar Train, Pete Stewart.
Yeah, that's mine. That's mine.
Talking.
Yeah.
I'll let you fill it in. Go ahead.
Yeah, what happened with Grammar Train?
Yeah, just mine was Pete Stewart from Grammar Train. Then he left Grammar Train and then played with Tate. So Michael Tate, DC Talk.
Okay,
he was
very
in Tate,
well,
Tate Band, very well, and that was a banger album. I wish they did more. And then he left the faith as well. So it was, and back then we're like, what?
Yeah,
Pete Stewart from Grammar Train no longer believes. So like that was mine. I didn't really have a swearing in any lyric type of one, but I think Pete Stewart was my big one.
I feel like the one that I actually followed the trajectory of is like, I think Derek Webb was going through all of the exact questions as I was going through all the questions. So I kind of always felt kindred with him as he went into it. Because even when I was like in the church, I think there's something very weird. And I tell Leonore this all the time, but like, there's something weird about Five Iron where Five Iron made it feel really okay to question things. Yeah. Like it made it really okay to question things. And like Derek Webb started off with like that first solo album where he has the song like "They'll Know We're Christians by the T-shirts we wear." It's like that is like a Five Iron song without horns. You know what I mean? Like lyrically, it absolutely fits that attitude. And I was like, I get exactly what he's talking about because it does feel commercialized and weird and like. And then as he kind of dipped in and out, and even now, I think him and I are in the same place where we're like, I don't know what I believe. I just know what makes me feel happy. Like, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing necessarily. It's definitely weird to be unsure of your faith while also teaching at a youth group. But I actually think that the kids appreciate that. I'm very open that I'm still very much on a journey with them. But yeah, Derek Webb, I think, is the one where I was like right on that trip with him. Even with Five Iron, even when I thought it was cool that they were cursing, but I also was like, no, Five Iron's not supposed to say ass. Like they're like that's not Five Iron.
That's not my Five Iron frenzy.
Yeah.
I think for me, the first Christian band I remember hearing swear, and it wasn't necessarily, they weren't a Christian band, but it was a bunch of guys from other Christian bands, was the Aunt Betty's self-titled album.
Okay.
I remember like the first time I heard that, I was like, whoa, wait, did he just sing shit like repeatedly, like at the end of this song, like over and over and over? I play it back. I'm like, yeah.
I never listened to this band, mostly just and I have no explanation why, because I love everything by all of the bands that were part of it. But I have had a weird fascination with just Raft of Dead Monkeys because it was such a controversial thing where it's like following up on just like what they were doing. And like, I hate that I never got to experience. I mean, I guess they're doing shows again, but I never got to experience like Blaster the Rocket Man live. And like, those were those after high school, early in college, questioning my faith albums that I started to find and be like, it was like this, it kept me in the church for like another year. Cause I'm like, oh, you can be cool and edgy and love horror movies so much. And also still like go to church, because that was like, for whatever reason, it didn't matter that I like never drank, never touched a drug, like never cursed, was like the picture of perfection for the most part. So many people at the church had a problem with how much I loved horror movies and like really made it feel like there was something that I was doing wrong by watching them.
There's always something.
Yeah. So like to find like, okay, well, here's a cool Christian band that all their songs are about horror movies, like them and the Deadlights, and like discovering that thing was like a nice reminder that it's like, no, I am allowed to like this stuff.
Go to the graveyard.
Oh my God. That
and Matt Kelly, come out to the West Coast because they're playing in Seattle in May.
Whoa. Okay.
90 Pound Wuss. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to keep that in mind because so unrelated, but we are mentioning the deadlines. Have any of you heard of a movie called Evil Alien Conquerors?
No.
Okay. It's got a stellar cast. Feel free to look it up. But it's like, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name now. A guy from Drew Carey show that plays Rex Kwon Do in Napoleon Dynamite. Dietrich Baker. It's Dietrich and Chris Parnell play these aliens that come from another planet, and they have
I have
2 days.
seen this.
Yes, they have 2 days to kill everybody on Earth.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And they're really, really bad at it. Yep. And then if they can't do it in 2 days, this giant called Krogar is supposed to come and kill them all. But when Krogar gets set to kill them all, he shrinks to the size of a regular man, but he doesn't realize he's not giant. Yes. So it's just a regular sized person walking like dramatically through the streets and making the sounds of him stomping or whatever. Anyway, it's a great.
This is fantastic.
It's a great, bizarre, abstract movie. But
it's so out there, but amazing. Yeah.
But the thing that I can't wrap my head around is there's a montage set to go in the graveyard by the Deadlines. And I'm like, who made this movie?
Wow. Really?
Like, who made this movie? It's the only song in the entire movie. I've combed through the entire IMDb trying to find some connection to one of the members of the Deadlines that made sense to me, and I have no clue. So I almost want to contact the director and be like, did you grow up on Tooth and Nail also? Like, what's the story here? Like,
right.
Let's find out. Let's find out. Get him on the pod.
Yeah. Did you do this in Seattle? What was going on? You know?
Yeah. What is the story here? Like, because I remember my friend showing me the movie, and it was literally like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme, like on his couch. Like the song started playing, I was like, it's the thing.
Man, no, I'm gonna have to definitely check that out. I love just bad movies and stuff like that. You know, huge Mystery Science Theater fan. So like something that's so bad that it becomes good again is just awesome.
I do a thing the first Friday of every month at my house called Weird Ass Movie Night, where I just do a triple feature of like increasingly more absurd movies. And like people just come over, bring food, and we watch these movies together. And I've like cracked the code of like, this is the order it has to go when I pick the 3 films. Cause like the first movie has to be one that you can like just have on in the background. Maybe it gets a little crazy at the end, but like throughout that movie, people are showing up and they're talking. So like no one's really paying attention to it.
Like an opening band.
Yeah. Yep. The second movie is like the food has shown up and people are eating now. So I go for stuff that has like some visual moments, but like they're still conversing. So it's like they're looking at the TV being like, what the hell's happening? And then the third feature is usually like, all right, everybody's got the conversations out. Like this is the one that like everyone kind of quietly watches. And when Evil Alien Conquerors was the third feature for the alien themed month that I had put together, like 3 different people tracked down copies on eBay because they're like, I need this movie in my collection. This is like, it was easily the biggest hit that I've ever had at a Weird Ass Movie Night screening. Awesome. Like people were just like, this is fucking wild. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's a fun little. I feel like as I get older, and I'm sure everybody goes through this, where it's like keeping in touch with people becomes harder. At this point, like my best friends are the people that I podcast with because they're the people that I talk to every week.
Yep.
But like putting together these things like, hey, we're doing a movie night once a month, or like, hey, the Royal Rumble's on, who wants to come over, and like what, like just finding these little sections of like, hey, it's an excuse for us to hang out for a couple hours before we lose track of each other for like the next 3 weeks. Like,
right.
It's I find those to be very important, which is like, I don't know, it's weird. It's kind of the big difference between myself and my girlfriend, who like I adore, but she's had like the same 3 best friends since high school, and I've like, because I've like lived in California for a little bit, and I like do merch for a bunch of different bands, and I've, you know, kind of been all over the place. Like I have all of these friendships scattered all over the place, and it's like for her, it's like keeping in touch with the people that matter is just like once every couple weeks, her and her 3 friends meet up. And for me, it's like, oh, this person who I literally haven't seen in person since 2006, I still text like every other week just to make sure they're doing okay. Like
I get it. I get it.
Yep. Yeah. Where are you based out of, Matt?
I'm just outside of Philly. I'm in the suburbs.
Okay,
of
that's right.
Philadelphia.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, hello, East Coast. Welcome.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
Dan
Sorry,
and I
Brock.
are up.
All
in
these
that
guys,
area.
all these guys are on the East Coast. I'm in Oregon, which is beautiful, but not on the East Coast.
Yeah,
Which is why we have to
Oregon's nice.
podcast.
Yeah. What areas of the East Coast are the rest of the gentlemen from?
I'm in right outside of Providence. I'm in East Providence, Rhode Island,
Gotcha.
but originally from New York.
Oh,
And I'm on Cape Cod, so just south of Boston, basically.
okay.
I'm in North Carolina and south of Raleigh.
Okay. Well, I was like, okay, so everyone's in New England, but Brock, but apparently not. No, that's
Nope.
Nope.
not the case. I went
Southeast
to
Everyone's in the same time zone except for Brock.
there. You
That's
go.
right.
I don't know how close North Carolina is massive, but the first time I ever officiated a wedding was in Asheville, North Carolina, which was absolutely
Love
like the
Asheville.
prettiest place I've ever been.
Yep.
So it was a good time. They got buried on a farm out there, and all the food was made fresh by the farmers at the farm for them. So I had the best tomato soup I've ever had in my entire life at the wedding.
That sounds like a very Asheville experience.
Yeah, it was. Well, the other Asheville experience was absolutely nowhere to after party because that entire town shuts down at like 8:30 at night.
Correct. Yes, everything closes early. There's you got to go to the one bar where all the bar staff go at night that stays open till like 4. The
Yeah,
yacht
it
club.
was-
The yacht
it
club
was-
is your spot.
Oh,
It was
man.
Had
literally
some good
like
nights in the yacht club. Yeah.
like their they did like the rehearsal and the rehearsal dinner. The rehearsal dinner was over at like 7:30, 8 o'clock because that's when the restaurant was closing. And like everyone's like, there's got to be a place where we can go to like hang out some more. And the answer was no, there was not. So the after party turned in instead of an after party, they did a bar crawl the next morning, like throughout Nashville.
That's how
Well
you do
rested
it.
and ready to go.
That's how you
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I drove home because I had a 7-hour drive ahead of me, and I was like, I'm good.
Sure.
And like I said, I don't drink, so there was nothing for me to gain from a bar crawl. Like,
Pretzels.
Right,
It's
right.
true. It's true.
Walking around, watching everybody else be stupid. Yeah.
yeah, I
Just eating
did
the
that
pretzels.
one time.
Yep.
One time, I agreed to be the designated driver on St. Patrick's Day for some friends, and it was like, hey, we don't want to be on the party bus. Can you follow the party bus as it goes from bar to bar? And I think I made it to the 3rd bar and was like, here's the deal. I'll pick you guys up when you're done. And I think it was
I don't need to
me
be a part
and,
of
like,
this.
Yeah, it was like me and like 2 other because they started at like 11 a.m. It was when like St. Patrick's Day landed on a Saturday, so it was like extra crazy. It was
Best
like
of all worlds.
yeah, it was like 1 in the afternoon. We're like, we're gonna go back to the apartment, and you shoot me a text, and I'll get you guys. And then we just watched like I think that's when I showed one of my friends Wet Hot American Summer for the first time. I was like, let's watch this. It's a good
choice.
movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great St. Patrick's Day film.
Oh.
That's right. Well, that's the best choice because the conversations weren't getting any better. I'm sure.
No, exactly. It was like,
No.
what am I doing here? What is happening?
I was a party bus driver for a while. I don't know if I
Oh.
told any of you guys this, but
No.
I, as a side job, I was just driving people around, and that gets old quick.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
the straight edge guy working at a head shop for like a year and a half, which was it's like I don't know. It's made a head. Buy it.
Yeah. Did you smoke
Some
cigarettes?
people are only fun if you're one of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like,
So really nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
but it was the same as like the best job I ever had. It was the worst paying job I ever had was working at a mom and pop's video store that only carried VHS in 2008. Like it was
Which is
like,
pretty rad.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
I just sat there with 0 customers 90% of the day. And then like the few customers that did come in were like people who cared enough about film like I did to like still buy obscure movies on VHS. So we'd have
Oh,
like an
that's
hour
good.
chat and then they'd leave and I'd be on my laptop watching a movie that I got in the mail from Netflix.
Right, right. As you do. As you do.
You didn't have the Apple VHS add-on drive.
No, this was 2008. They still had disc
Yeah.
drives in their
Yeah.
computers.
Oh,
That was
right,
I hated that when they got rid of that, and I think now they don't even have like a headphone jack anymore. Like, how dare you?
No.
You're lucky if you can plug anything into your computer anymore.
It's
You cannot plug an Ethernet cable into a Mac. I learned
Yeah.
that this weekend. Yeah, I was looking
Yeah.
for it. And I was like, that's not there. There's no port. Wi-Fi only.
And that's why I don't use Mac, guys.
Listen, when you're doing
That's
video
why our
and
text
audio
thread is
editing,
green.
That's right.
you don't have many
Oh.
other options.
I know I get it, but I still do it.
Yeah, listen, if I could get the editing done as well on a PC as I crush on
I
an
hear ya.
Apple,
No, I
would.
understand.
It's a cheaper option, and I have more things that I can do with it.
Yep. Hear that, guys? Hear that, guys? I'm not alone. But no, you're good. Right.
He's on a
No,
Mac, Pete. Did you miss that part?
I know. I understand. I completely understand. I get where you're coming from for sure. Yeah.
Because that's like 90% of my life is podcasting and video work. Like that's how I'm keeping any form of lights on in my life. I just gave up my big job as a dog walker. So like now I really got to hunker down on the video editing.
Now to get into it.
Yeah, I decided it's too cold. It's too cold anymore.
How many different podcasts do you do?
So there's two categories technically. There's the shows that I like host and create.
Right. Okay.
And then I'm also a producer for hire for a couple other shows.
Sure.
But on average, I'm in charge of about 10 shows a week coming out on schedule, which means like I record them, I handle the scheduling, I do the editing, I do the release, and I do the promotion for them. And then, I run a network. So there's the entire Geekscape network was created by my friend Jonathan. And then it was just his show. He had a show called Geekscape, and I was a fan of it. And I had a podcast. He's like, "Oh, we'll release it on Geekscape. You'll be the second ever show." And he opened up a Pandora's box, and I just was like, "Hey, I found this great show." And like next thing I knew, like I'd go like, "Oh, we don't have a wrestling show? That's weird." And I would just contact the hosts of the wrestling show I most liked listening to, and was like, "Hey, do you want to be on this network? We can't give you any
him in
money."
the network.
Like, and it was like, but it was crazy. Like people,
Right.
I think that's when I learned one of my skill sets was like the offer to come to Geekscape was not like, I was very transparent. I was like, there's no money. You do everything that you already do. You're just going to throw this little tag at the end of your show and say that you're part of our network now. But if you need
the podcasting version of UHF. It's basically like the same setup.
But that's what
like,
it was.
Wheel of Fish. That's our next show. Here we go.
Yeah. But it was like, but what it was like, if you need anything, you contact me and I will help you figure it out. And I think that's where, like, now we're a network that has like 30 something shows. And like one of our podcasters just lost everything, lost his house and everything in the LA fires that are happening. And like that, the entire network pulled together, and they have like a GoFundMe that's over like $100,000. Like
amazing.
Wow.
But it's like
network.
But that's the thing. I sold it as like, we're a network in name, we're a collective in reality. Like it's this idea of like, we're all just people who are passionate about this. And like what ended up happening is like, we're a podcast network that has like really talented musicians on it, and really talented filmmakers, and really great actors, and really great improv comics. And like seeing those projects happen now, where like person A, who's a director, is using person B to score their film, and like contacting person C, like it just kind of built this cool web of like, we just threw a bunch of super creative people into a giant pile.
Yeah.
And then like doing the yearly live stream charity events and stuff like that. It was just like forced interaction. Like I talked about Weird Ass Movie Night. One of my favorite elements of Weird Ass Movie Night is when I find out that people who literally would have never met had it not been for Weird Ass Movie Night do things without me in their free time. Like I'm like, oh, I made that happen. Like it's like,
Sure.
like this random person who moved here from California but listened to Horror Movie Night and sent me an email. And I was like, come to my house. like that guy's now like best friends with my buddy from Delaware. Like, it's like
Sure.
being able to kind of like move those pieces and be like, but I think that what I'm saying is like, I learned that my skill set was knowing who was really good at different stuff.
Mm.
And the idea of like a good Christian fun type show had been in my brain for like over a decade. But it was at Comic-Con when I was talking to Katie and realizing like, oh, you went to a Christian college, like your parents were like Bible, like pastors and Bible people. I'm like, you're the person I've been looking for to make this show actually happen. Like the same way that like I couldn't do One Hit Thunder until I thought of Chris Afalios, and I couldn't do Weird Algorithm until I thought, oh, Matt Milligan from Wheatus is like one of the biggest Weird Al fans I know. Like it was trying to find that extra piece of the puzzle to make things work. And that's like, I think that's what my skill set I ended up realizing was not necessarily podcasting, but networking, of being like your voice and your voice. Let's throw them together. Let's see what happens.
And go.
That's the chocolate and the peanut butter. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, the way you guys
Pop you in a
pitched it,
room. Here we go. Right.
I feel like I found my people. You and Katie are both kind of exactly where I am in terms of my experience, kind of what I know. It's nice to have a place to hear people talking about these things from a perspective that kind of matches mine, because you can get some of that in some places, but yeah, this really is targeted at my demographic, I think. So thank you for that.
Of course. Well, because I think for me, the other big part that was missing for a while was like, I was all in on like the whole bad Christian thing for a really, really long time. And then I felt like
the Emory
that
guys
show kind of, and then I felt like that show started to lose its way. Like after
when
like
they started their own
years,
cryptocurrency.
Yeah. I was like, what is happening?
Forgot about that.
Happening?
Yeah.
Emory coin. Yeah.
I mean, the coolest thing that they ever did was that labeled podcast about Tooth and Nail. And that was another one that like the first season of that show, I would say is the best first season of any podcast I've ever heard. Because it was like mini documentaries. Like it would be like, what's the story of when Further Seems Forever dropped off of their headlining tour, and they would sit and interview like all of the guys from Amber Lynn, all of the guys and like splice it together like a documentary. And then it kind of just turned into like, here's a 2-hour interview with the guy from some metalcore band that signed to Tooth and Nail 6 years ago. And I'm like, that means nothing to me.
I stopped listening to those episodes. Yep.
Yeah. Like that's when I was like, I'm kind of out. Like I just wanted, and maybe it's like selfish, but I'm like, I don't want to hear about what's the new stuff on Tooth and Nail. I have not cared about the new stuff in Tooth and Nail. We
haven't forged a connection with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I want to hear the like, I would love you give me a whole like series just about the history of the songs from the Penalty Box albums. Like I'm in, because like those were like the way that people talk about like discovering DC Talk, and like not for nothing, DC Talk was my gateway into all of the Christian music, but like it was getting someone buying me Songs from the Penalty Box Volume 2 and listening to that and being like, oh, it can also sound like this. Like that was like where everything came together, because it was an uphill battle trying to convince my friends who I'd been listening to like Blink 182 and Green Day with to be like, dude, check out Audio Adrenaline. They're
if
just
you
as
like
good.
Savage Garden, you'll love Audio Adrenaline.
Yeah, like it was like, but like discovering like, no, there's actually some of these, like I would say Zayal's more brutal than most of the mainstream secular metal bands. Like which, I mean, they're another one where, you know, I become friends with Scott through doing One Hit Thunder, and he's like, we have not been a Christian band for a very, very long time.
Right.
but not for nothing. Like, it's like, that was like that and Living Sacrifice, and like discovering those bands and being like, oh, you can sound this heavy and it not be like stuff that I have to hide from my parents. Like I may have to still hide it from them because they just won't like the sound of it. But like, but if they were to question it, I'd be like, here's the lyrics, read what they're singing. Like,
I mean,
that's what we all did to defend it.
You talked about,
can't argue with this.
You talked about Uphill Battle. I mean, let's bring it back. Tate with Pete Stewart did a song called Uphill Battle, and it was a banger. Okay,
yes.
Sorry, just bringing it back.
Man, I've said this on another podcast I know, but man, the weird world that the three members of DC Talk have all found themselves in, in 2025 is just fascinating to me.
So you think they're getting back together or what?
Definitely. Yeah.
I can't even see a world where Kevin Max and Michael Tate have anything to talk to each other
or they have
about.
dinner together. Yeah.
They did the cruise, man. They were on a cruise ship together. Sure, there might have been a helicopter taking them off the boat and back on, but they were on a cruise ship together.
But I feel like DC Talk is the most often referenced like joke about the music and no one discusses like they're super interesting. Like three vocalist group that was
Yes,
doing what they
agreed.
there's not a version of that. Like you know what I mean?
And
What they put together was unusual.
they put
Yeah.
together
Period.
something
And it was
unusual.
really good.
They're easy to dunk on because they like hit the Jesus part so hard, but
Yeah.
that doesn't change the fact that like Free at Last, Jesus Freak, and Supernatural are all really good records.
Amazing.
Thank
Exactly.
you. You're speaking my language.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
And-
can
Exactly.
dunk on the self-titled and the new thing all you want.
And
'cause
we
that is,
do.
like,
Right.
it-
And we do.
that's like cheesy, but like Free at Last, they really, as a kid, I was like a Jesus Freak guy. That was like my album. But as
Yeah.
I've gotten older, I'm like, man, Free at Last is the record.
It's a
Yeah,
great
it
album.
really
yeah.
is.
It's a little questionable that there's a song called Two Honks and a Negro on that album.
Serving the
Yes.
Lord.
But besides
Even
that,
Arsenio Hall thought that was kind of weird.
take that song off the table. The other like 16 songs on that record are phenomenal. Like they're really good.
Willpower.
Yes, the
Bum, bum,
power
bum,
to
bum.
will away temptation.
Temptation.
That's what
Temptation
I-
sold separately. Batteries not included.
But they get so much criticism because their famous song is Jesus. Like it's so just out there in your face, Jesus Freak, which is a,
mean, there was
a cliche.
books.
Yeah,
Right, and I have it. It's downstairs.
I have both of them. Yeah.
I have the T-shirt. Yeah.
But they were really well produced, really well made. Like they made music the way the non-Christian music industry made music for radio, and they were good at it. And they put on a real traveling tour. Like they were
Yeah.
really, really good at what they did. And they get dunked on because Jesus Freak, like that one thing.
That backing band, like Zilch, Markley Townsend, Otto Bear, all those guys, like that put them on the map as far as like their orchestration. I mean, the three guys, hey, amazing, talented, but like that background band, so good. That's why they spawned off onto Zilch.
Until like that live album came out,
Mm.
I don't think I got it because like they were, like I said, they were the first band that I got into at the time. It would have been 1997, so I would have been like 11 or 12. And I think I was just like, I had never experienced a band where people weren't playing instruments. So I think in my head, I was just like, okay, well, obviously one drums and the other two like play. Like I
That's
just
how
like,
it works.
yeah, like in my head, they were this great three-piece band that like could do any genre.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, they literally just sing. Like
Nope.
they
Kevin
quite
plays the
literally-
keyboard. I saw it.
In the Heaven Bound video.
One
Right.
of the
Yes.
big, I feel like one of the other big questions that I always feel like I can't talk to anybody else about who didn't like grow up in this world is I always find myself wondering about two sides of the same question is like bands that should have been bigger in the mainstream, but also like bands whose careers would have been more successful on a different label. Like I always felt that PAX 217, if they were on Tooth and Nail or 5 Minute Walk, would have had a much bigger success. They were like the odd man out on the Forefront Records because they were actually like kind of a interesting punky band, like which meant that Forefront didn't know how to promote them at all across two albums except for putting them in extreme dates.
Yeah.
But like I always said, like 7 Day Jesus, that self-titled 7 Day Jesus album,
Yes.
like how did the song like Butterfly and Down with the Ship could have just been huge mainstream radio hits to me. And and it's like one of those things where you look at, man, like Forefront did not know how lucky they were with like DC Talk cracking through and did not know how to promote any other band on that label to even have a little bit of that success. Like they really pushed hard on Audio Adrenaline. I remember like they really pushed like that Underdog record with like Get Down. They're like, this will be a radio jam. And radio jam it was not. But like but like they just I always Tooth and Nail, as much as you can give them crap, like they knew how to properly push a band if there was even a little bit of a rumbling that the radio would be interested in it. They worked on that, and I think Forefront never knew how to actually, or they just didn't care. It just like wasn't on their radar at all. But I feel like so many bands that could have had like a Jars of Clay or a DC Talk moment just never even had a chance, strictly because they were on Forefront and not another label.
Yeah, I mean, in like 7 Day, they were phenomenal, and I didn't even pick up on them until they were pretty much gone. And then Chris Beatty went on to be the guitar tech for Switchfoot.
Yeah.
And I'm chatting with him. And I'm like, why do I recognize you? You know, like we're buddies. He's gone on to do a lot of stuff now. And he goes, oh yeah, I was in 7 Day Jesus. I went, of course you were. You know, it's like one of those. He's like, yeah, we just didn't we as band members just didn't keep it going either.
Yeah.
So, but I know what you mean. But I definitely know what you mean as far as like record label wide. A lot of these like smaller bands on Forefront just weren't promoted.
Yeah, like let's be honest. As much as Skillet has somehow made it into the mainstream, that was not Forefront Records making that happen.
No.
That was racism making that happen.
Yeah, Forefront was never trying to cross over. It seems like Forefront was always trying to kind of make it grow in the church market.
Yeah, which I guess is like, you know, we're all brought together by a mutual love of a very specific band, and like I think, again, like we said, that band made it okay to question that stuff. And like Five Iron, the idea that there was a band, it was very rare to me when I was getting into Christian music to look at the liner notes and see bands like Real Big Fish or Less Than Jake being thanked in those liner notes.
Mm-hmm.
And then along comes Five Iron. And it kind of was like, I feel like Five Iron was also the band that gave me the free pass to actually listen to both, like like in a world where I think up until that moment I didn't realize that was an option on the table. It was like I got into Christian music and I was like, well, now I have to throw away everything. Like it all has to go. Like,
I'm so glad I had parents that didn't make me do that.
Yeah. No, this was me. I was the most religious person in my house. Like,
sure. Okay. I got you. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. I was the Alex P. Keaton in that home as far as religion went. Like,
hey, Matt, we got to ask you, just because we talked about Five Iron, we do have to give equal time to insiders. So I'm curious what your observations on the insiders are. Otherwise, we're going to get a call from an angry roofer.
Do we? Let's make it matter. Let's get him.
No, so here's the funny story about all this. So I was thinking about this because I thought that this conversation would come up. The first concert I ever went to was Ska Mania 98, which is Insiders, Five Iron Frenzy, Supertones.
Yeah.
The reason I ended up at that show,
the Holy Trinity, if you will.
Yes. The reason
Holy Trilogy.
The reason I ended up at that show was I had this very cool youth pastor who had given my mom a cassette tape that was like a Forefront Records compilation. That's where I heard DC Talk, and I was like trying to find more music like that. And I bought Wow 1999.
Yeah.
And it had Little Man by Supertones on it. And I was already a bit of a ska kid up until that point. So it was like, oh, there's Christian ska. That's exciting. And like just as I discovered that song, the church was like, hey, there's this show in Philly. We're going to take kids there if anybody wants to go. And like I asked my mom, she trusted the people at the church, and they drove me. And I remember my takeaway was the Insiders played first, and I thought I found my new favorite band. And then Five Iron went on, and I hated it. I liked the Star Trek stuff that they were doing. Like I thought the Star Trek stuff was funny, but I was like, I think I was also just like tired. I was like, when is the Supertones band going to come on so I can go to bed? Like I was so exhausted. And then I thought the Supertones were like really cool. They're doing like the crowd surfing on the surfboard and like all of their shtick. And I was like really into it. And I was like, yeah, Five Iron's fine, but Insiders, baby, that's where it's at. And it was later on, like I think I heard Dandelions. I heard no, it was One Girl Army. I heard One Girl Army on the Christian radio station. They had like from 10 to 11 p.m. you could hear rock music on the Christian.
This is the only time you can
Saturday
hear One
Night
Girl Army on the
Shakedown.
Christian radio station.
And I was like, hell yeah! Like I was really into that song, and then I kind of worked my way backwards from there. But Insiders for years, like at least 2 years, was like my band. I think that they're an easy band to make fun of, similar to DC Talk. The Scalaluya stuff ages a little weird. But like the Motor City ska, and specifically Fight of My Life, I still think those are awesome records. Fight of My Life, I would say, could be in the conversation. Like if you were putting together a list of like best ska records of all time, I would throw that album in the contention and be like, give this album an actual listen, because Jigsaw, The Hunted,
You
the
become
cover,
the hunted.
yeah, the
Yep.
cover of
Yep.
Just What I Need It by the Cars.
Yeah, the car
like,
song. Yeah.
There's
Yep.
that's a really good 10 tracks. Like from front to back, it's really good. Motor City Ska has a couple weird ones throughout it. And like I still love the Scalaluya albums, but it is that like I do think that there's a certain world where the Insiders are a little cheesier than even the Supertones because of those Scalaluya albums. Like they just feel so on the nose at a certain point. There's something that I think about every time I listen to that album, which I do listen to it somewhat regularly, was the guy who ran the church band at that time was always into like whatever we were listening to. Like he was a youth leader and he also ran the church band. And I remember when Scalaluya 2 came out and his biggest note was, man, they're playing really loud for a song that begins with "In the Secret Quiet Place." And I was like, man, what a perfect feedback on that. But I don't like Scalaluya 2 is not a perfect album, but I really do think it has like my favorite version of Shout to the Lord. Like I think that they do a really good version of Shout to the Lord. The one original song on there is actually pretty good. Yes, I don't disagree. The anyone else go to Creation Festival and hear like a different worship leader sing the same 6 songs every night?
Yep.
I mean, the one that sticks with me is Reign in Me. Lord Reign in Me. That Creation beat that one into my brain for eternity.
Yeah. Personally, I think Night 2's singer did the best job of those 6 worship songs.
No, but I mean, again, we're like my mom is like all in on CCM worship music now because she took over the band at the church. So she's like Team Chris. She's Team Chris Tomlin, where like, I mean, I have a sneaking feeling I don't agree with his politics, but David Crowder was the only person doing anything interesting with worship music.
Good.
I'm very Team Crowder. I'm very curious what he's up to these days in terms of politics because he's real quiet about that. I think he knows where his bread is buttered.
Him and Toby Mac both. I've referred to both of them as the Michael Jordan of the Christian music scene because they both seem to have the Republicans buy shoes too attitude.
Right. Let's remember David Crowder's house is featured in Guardians of the Galaxy holiday movie.
Oh,
that's David Crowder's house that is Kevin Bacon's house.
Okay, that's insane. I did not know that.
Just so you know, my boy Crowder knows what's up.
So he's a Hollywood elite. I got it. Okay.
There's some money in those worship tunes.
He's in the 1%, you know? Like no, they literally came up to his house and his wife was home, and it's like the ugliest house in Houston or something like that. It's like what it was billed as for the longest time before they bought it. And they came up to his house and basically asked if they could shoot scenes for this movie there. They didn't know who he was, it's David Crowder's house.
I love it. But he was the only person who was like, hey, what if worship music had weird time signatures?
Yeah. Like church music was great.
Yeah. I was like, this is really, really good. Like you do have those songs like Open Skies, or I love his version of Come Thou Fount, which is just like this amazing, like borderline Celtic rock sounding song. Like I can't listen to most of any of that stuff, like the Passion stuff or whatever, but every once in a while I find myself popping on some Crowder again because it was good music. And I think that that's what I want to do with Christian Cringe is I was like, I said it in I think our first episode, I would love to bring people who did not grow up with this music at all that are like big heavy metal fans and have them listen to Living Sacrifice and give their honest take of like, is this good? Like, not lyrically, musically, is this as good as anything else that was coming out there? And I think, especially for certain genres, the answer is yes. In a big way, it's yes.
And that's what's kept me with it in a lot. Yeah.
Reborn and the Hammering Process are phenomenal.
Yeah. So the relationship that I'm in, we're nearing 2 years, but it still feels new because I was single for 17. So it's still very different. But I had this amazing moment where I was hanging out with one of her best friends and her best friend's husband, and we were at some weird. It was like someone's like 10-year wedding anniversary, like vow renewal thing or whatever. And we're sitting there talking, and like he's referencing venues that I used to book at and people that I used to know. And I was like, were you in a band? And he was in this band that I used to book that was like a Christian death metal band that I like booked for like 3 or 4 shows. And next thing I know, like we start talking about this stuff, and it's like the rest of the party like walked away. It was just like the two of us at the table talking about like Project 86 and
Awesome.
Zayal and stuff. And it's like it is
That's
this
awesome.
weird, it's a weird like secret handshake that you have with people because it's so rare to like bump into other people that get those super deep reference points. Like there's surface level stuff like Jars of Clay, Veggie Tales, like that's like even if you were not invested in this stuff at all, you know that stuff. But like as you keep like digging deeper and deeper and deeper, when you can have a really heated like 15-minute conversation on if Drawing the Black Lines or Truthless Heroes was the better Project 86 album, like you're like, okay, I found my people.
Yep.
Like this is
Right.
this is where the conversation is.
or even just you, yeah, like you referencing Raft of Dead Monkeys and like
Yeah.
Harley Poe and stuff like that. I'm like,
Yeah, like it's but it's that special, it is like a cool secret handshake where you're like, oh, I can talk to these people about these things that have just sat in my brain and I've not been able to verbalize to anyone because no one knows what the hell I'm talking about.
Well, and
But
it's one of those.
Got to do something with it.
Yeah,
It's one of those communities too where it's easy to like if you don't know anything about it to make fun of it, kind of like the Christian Cringe, because there is so much cheesiness and corny. So when you meet somebody who even like no matter where you're at now, there's like a real affection for the formative part of it in your own life. You're like, no, I genuinely appreciated this, liked it. It was meaningful, but I'm honest enough as an adult and where I am now that I can give a real take on was it good or not. I can laugh at the parts that weren't, but you don't want to just engage with somebody who wants to poke fun at kind of your formative years. You're like,
yeah,
no, there's good inside of what happened there, even if some of the art is bad, because there's bad art. You don't have to put the Christian label on it to
yeah.
have consumed a lot of bad art, right? And
Well, it's also to a certain extent the fact that like at its core, there's the like, and I hate using this word because it sounds way harsher than I mean it to, but like that 90s into the early 2000s specific, the propaganda of it, where it was just like they saw that there was this moment where they had the kids' attention, and it was like full steam ahead, like let's just get everything that we can possibly get out there. And like when you're working under those circumstances, you're obviously going to make a lot of bad stuff. Like there are so many bands that you can look at, and like I know the joke is always like the Christian bookstores that were like for fans of Blink 182 and like slamming it on like the Reliant K CDs or whatever. But like there are those albums where you're just like, who was this for? Like the swing praise albums. Like
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you know this, but there's whole magazines out there that put.
Yeah.
I mean, I happened to go through a crate the other day. I'm not really bringing all these visual aids out just for fun, but
no,
this
it's
would
for
become.
fun.
Oh, it is too. No, it is too. But I don't have it at the ready because I'm like, oh, I'm going to bring this up. But we use this. This is the youth leaders only. If you're a fan of this band, listen to this band.
Yeah.
That was huge back then. So you're right. Like it was like you slap it on a CD or you give it to youth leaders.
Yeah. I remember specifically, and I wish I could find this magazine. There was a magazine at our church that was like a youth leaders magazine or like a book for Christian kids. And they had like a Dear Abby music section where it's like, I really want to listen to this band, but I feel bad about their lyrics. And the person was writing about Weezer. They're like, I love Weezer, but I just can't because sometimes they reference sex in their songs or whatever.
Half Japanese girls do
like
it to me every time.
Which, like, listen, them mentioning sex is the least of the questionable Rivers Cuomo lyrics in the history of Weezer. But I'll never forget that their suggestion was check out Bleach. And I was like, at the time, the only song I really knew was Epidermis Girl. And I'm like, I don't hear it at all. like years later, I heard stuff like "We Are Tomorrow," where I'm like, oh, this is a very Weezery sounding song. Where I'm like, okay, kudos magazine, you got it right. But at the time, I was like, Bleach. Bleach is
They were
your
wearing
band?
horn-rimmed glasses. I think that was the thing.
There you go.
It's
Was
like-
it like Brio or Breakaway, one of those magazines?
I'll
Remember
never
those?
forget.
I do.
There was that one Five Iron Frenzy tour where it was the sock puppets. They wanted
Yep.
everyone to bring sock puppets, and the lineup was like Ace Troubleshooter. I want to say Reliant K, definitely John Rubin, Five Iron. There may have been a fifth band, but I'll never forget. I was already a John Rubin fan, and then he endured me to him so much more when he was on the stage at the show that I was at, and he was just like, if you're only here because your youth leader told you I'm just like Eminem and Reliant K is just like Blink-182, I want to hear you scream. And I was like, man, he gets it. Like he gets it fully. Like that was that, but like that's what I mean when I say like the propaganda machine was the like, it's like, okay, we got him. How do we keep him? Like,
Well, no, but that's what I mean. That's what I'm
Yeah.
agreeing with. Like this
Yeah.
whole, like it was just like if you like this, then you listen to this one, right?
The fun thing with that magazine that Pete's got there is we've actually started using it in our episodes.
That's why it's
So-
right by me, right by my computer. Yeah.
So like we had Adam from Goaty Hook on, and we play games on this show. So like we're like, this is a new game. All right, you were in Goaty Hook. Who do you think they said if you
that's
like
awesome.
so and so, listen to Goaty Hook? And we did it with Jeff from Squad 50 as well. So
ooh,
Yeah.
oh, I'm trying to think what they would have put Jeff in.
Oh yeah, please. I
Well,
want
because
your
it
take on
depends.
this.
Was it the ska era, Jeff?
I'll tell you, this magazine is from winter of 2000.
Okay,
So
so
it
this
was
would have
not
been
the ska.
okay.
era.
So this was Bombs Over
glam rock.
Broadway.
Bombs Over
Yeah.
Broadway. Yep.
I mean, would kids ask about Guns N' Roses? That would be like my guess. It's like for
I mean,
fans
that's-
of Guns N' Roses.
That's a good guess, but that wasn't the band that put in here. But that it's along that vein.
Who'd they put in there?
So there's three bands that they put in here. So along that vein is Motley Crue and Cinderella,
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
and then the third is the New York Dolls.
Okay, I can
Yeah.
see a little bit of that.
Right.
Yeah.
God, you know what? That may have been the first. Now that I'm thinking about the earlier conversation, I didn't buy late news breaking for a really long time because everyone was like, "Oh, they started cursing. They went off the God's path." And like now, I would argue it's like the best Squad 50 album. Like late news breaking and that self-titled are like
Yeah.
fantastic records.
And there's some fun cameos on Late News Breaking
They
too.
really
I mean, you
are.
got Mike Knott on there, and then Ronnie Martin's on there too.
Yeah. No, there's some good like it's so weird, like those little pockets. I forgot about that controversy. That was the first because you mentioned Goaty Hook, and I was like, I think I remember reading people being upset about that on Decapolis. Like, it was,
Oh,
I remember
man.
The
Yeah.
fact that you know about Decapolis is, I think
Yeah.
that means you are
Yes.
people as well.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, those forums were unbelievable. That
Mhm.
was like my favorite forums. Like for years, I would just go there, and sometimes I would post, but most of the time, just like lurk and read all
Yep.
these people who seemed way cooler than me post hot takes about stuff, and especially being like in the PA area. So like Purple Door was like my big show,
Oh, yeah.
and Conrad was always the MC at that. So like there'd always be so much post Purple Door conversation that was like for like a week after Purple Door, I'd just be hanging out on those forums, like reading people talk about stuff, which is where I always remember the first time me and a lot of people ever heard of Paramore was that they played Purple Door randomly,
Mhm.
unannounced. They weren't on the lineup or anything. And the next day it was like, who was the band with the redheaded girl singing?
Yeah. And that wasn't the year. That wasn't the year that Me Without You and Reliant K played, right? That was a few years earlier.
I think it was maybe a year or two earlier. I mean, there were
Okay.
some crazy moments of Purple Door. There's a great
Yeah.
video on YouTube that I like try to show people to just explain like what my music scene was, which
Yeah.
was when they booked Me Without You, Norma Jean, and The Chariot all on the same show. So when Norma Jean started playing Memphis Will Be Laid to Rest, it was their current vocalist and the vocalist from The Chariot. And then Aaron came out to do his part. And it was like All three of them.
Man.
So
They were
good.
like dangling from the stage setups on the sides. The pit was insane. And I was like, this is pound for pound as good as any music festival you went to.
I miss
Like,
Purple Door. I miss Purple Door so much.
That is the only one that if it came back, I'd be like, yep, I'm going. Like,
Yeah.
but it has to be, again, like what I don't understand is, like, I get that all these things are going away. And I guess you have Furnace Fest. But like the
Yes.
same way that like they bring back Warped Tour or like a lot of these festivals for these one-offs, someone's got to crack the code on bringing back Purple Door as like this one day Christian 90s metal nostalgia festival, because that was like, I discovered some of the coolest, weirdest bands at Purple Door. That's where I discovered Danielson. That's where I discovered Joy Electric. Where I discovered one of what I think is one of the most talented bands I've ever seen, Anathello.
Oh,
Like
yes.
the and then that guy went on to do Fun. Like,
Yeah.
like it's just
Crazy.
crazy how talented some of these people are. Even like Switchfoot, like we mentioned Switchfoot, like at the time I could not care less about Switchfoot. They were like a mid-tier Christian band to me, but the way that they took their moment and became legitimately one of the most creatively interesting mainstream rock bands of the last 20 years is like nothing short of impressive to me. And now
Sure.
I can look back at like the Legends of Chin and like New Way to Be Human and be like, oh, there's a lot of interesting stuff on these records too that I just wasn't paying attention at the time because I was all in on the punk, metal, and ska music.
Sure.
And like anything that wasn't of a certain decibel level was not going to break through for me anymore. But like, and it's crazy how talented so many of these people were. And again, that's what I hope comes through with Christian Cringe, especially when we do the music episodes. I feel like the music stuff will time and time again mostly be the stuff that aged the best. It's like the music and the Veggie Tales, I feel like are going to be the things that aged really well. And
Sure.
when we dive into like the movies and the TV specials and all of that stuff, we're going to see the stuff that like did not age great.
I definitely want to hear McGee and Me because I loved that when I was a kid, and I have nothing but fond memories, but I have not revisited it at all.
So I watched it and have no memories of it. So I'm excited to watch it.
Really?
I'm going to watch it tomorrow morning. Like all I remember when I look at the box art, I'm like, I definitely rented these as a kid. And I have nothing else. I think I confused for years. I thought that I think I confused McGee and Me and Mac and Me. Like I was like,
Yeah,
I think I thought I was going to the
to
video store renting Mac and Me all the time.
the one that Paul Rudd always plays during the Conan clips. Yeah. Are you gonna do Adventures in Odyssey? I mean, if you're gonna do McGee and Me,
I'm gonna try to work through the ones that I can. Again, that's like all the stuff. Someone messaged me the other day and was like, "You got to do Carmen." And I was like, shockingly, like Carmen never entered my sphere, like ever.
Oh,
so,
lucky you.
So it'll be like me experiencing it for the first time.
Unlucky you.
Kevin needs it for sure.
Wait, what?
What I mean lucky is he didn't have to experience it. Now he's going to have to get into it. Yeah. It's unfortunate that you're going to have to listen to Carmen for the first time as an adult.
Listen,
Okay.
miss,
All right,
miss
good
Carmen,
cover.
but I saw what you guys talked about a couple days ago, and boy, did I get into the apologetics.
Yeah.
Come on, son. Which, like,
Come
now
on,
I listen
son.
to, and I'm like, this is worse than a bar band. Like, where
Oh,
I
my
said a lot
word.
of praise for musical talent for a lot of
Oh.
these bands, but apologetics is not one that I would categorize as in truly, like, especially doing a Weird Al podcast and like really
I
looking.
know.
Like looking at Weird Al's band and being like, he may have
That
assembled
band.
4 of the most incredible musicians to be
Oh
a
my
backup
gosh.
band. I cannot say the same about the Apologetics. They were not. There were some songs where it took a while for me to know what
Yeah.
song they were doing a parody of. Like,
I'll tell you, after we talked about apologetics, I pulled out the CDs because they gave me, I counted, I think there was 9 CDs in there. I listened to a few of them just for kicks and giggles to kind of remember the good old days. And I went, oh, okay. There's a reason why some of these were still sealed when I put them in my CD book. You know, like
yeah, I have one.
once
album
again,
by
if
them.
any of the apologetics are listening, feel free to come on the podcast. We'd love to talk about you to your face. Okay.
The one that I owned was Biblical Graffiti.
I have it.
My
Yep.
friend bought it and was like, nope, and then gave it to me. Which, like,
Well,
sometimes that worked out great. Like, my
Yeah,
friend bought a Soul
yeah.
Junk CD at a Five Iron Frenzy show,
Oh,
hated it, gave it to me. They're like one of my all-time favorite
so
groups.
good.
Soul
But-
Junk, LMI, the
Yeah,
original
oh my
LMI.
God.
Hey, you Illuminati coming through?
Yeah, before Toby Mac ruined that one.
Yeah.
His version is horrendous.
I mean, I liked it, but I know what you mean. After then, I listened to the original. I went, "Oh, okay, I see. Yep, I
Yeah.
like that better."
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't work as a reggae song. It's missing something.
One of my favorite parts about the Toby Mac version of LMI is that it is, I think he removed the word sucker twice because it was too hard for the Christian market. So.
Yes. Also, if you look up the YouTube channel, there's a lot of people speculating why he keeps talking about the Illuminati, which feels right in line with his audience base.
Yep.
I want to throw
He's
in a
the only
plug
one
though
speaking
for,
truth out there.
Oh, I want to hear. Hold on a second. Jared's got a plug. I
no
wanna hear-
for your Christian Cringe. You got to cover Salty. Do you know Salty?
No.
You don't know Salty the Singing Songbook?
This is more of an
Oh!
80s children's
Oh,
thing,
okay.
probably. So
I don't-
we're
I'll put it on the
older,
list.
so I think we're 5 to 10 years older.
So,
Yeah.
what's your era? What is your era for Christian when you came into the whole Christian market?
Mine was late 90s. Like it was
Okay.
like I
Alright.
said, like right when like Jesus
Prime
Freak
tooth
hit.
and nail.
Yeah, like it
Got
was
yeah,
it was that space.
yeah. A lot of
So-
us
We're
are
about a
80s. Yeah,
decade
yeah.
ahead, I think.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
like my thing is, as I'm sure you guys have heard on like One Hit Thunder, I
Yeah.
became very much just like Mr. Music Historian. Like I was like this close to getting a minor in American Studies, and I just didn't
Sure.
want to do another semester of college.
Right.
But I am fascinated by the history of movements, like cultural movements and stuff like that. So I'll have to dive into that because the 80s stuff, even like when I discovered the stuff in the 90s, felt dated and weird to me in a way that I was like, I don't want to watch this.
We'll send you some good stuff.
Please,
Salty is there were animated cartoons,
Salty,
there were
and
tapes,
live action. I went to see him on tour.
and then there were the musicals, like choir cantatas or whatever. We did them at our church. Yeah.
So it's salty with a P, like the Psalms.
So it's a singing
salty,
psalm book,
It's
yeah.
a psalm book. It's a singing. Yeah.
So I'll put this. I have a little like Excel doc that I keep stuff in here. So I'm gonna write salty in here.
And
So the
it's salty
stuff
with
that
a P. So yeah, just so you know, if you're looking it up with like salty like a cracker, that's not it. It's salty like the Psalms. It's a singing psalm.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Good note. Good
Guys,
note.
wait for this in
Yep.
the chat. Salty.com is still active, it looks like.
Oh,
but it
here you
doesn't
go,
look
bud.
current. It looks of its era.
We got a chat for you.
So I'll tell you the big one was the pastor at the church that I work at, when he heard that I was doing Christian Cringe, all he told me was, you got to cover A Thief in the Night.
Yes.
So I wrote that on my
horrifying
list.
as a kid.
Yeah, and he goes, save that for October. He goes, that's going to be some good Halloween content for you.
Oh,
'Cause he's like,
yes.
that scarred a generation in the 70s and 80s. So
Let's talk about trilogies. All those original Left Behind, not the Kirk Cameron junk.
yeah,
Like the original, like 80s, 70s, 80s, Thief in the Night, all that stuff. That was your trilogy right there.
yeah. I had a list. It's so funny. We're probably not going to cover all of these things, but I threw together a list of like what album anniversaries or TV related anniversaries are in this year. So
Okay.
maybe, hey, feel free to take from this list if you need topics. But in March, coming up in March, Project 86, Drawing the Black Lines, has 25-year anniversary,
Yes, sir.
as well as a 20-year anniversary for Maze the Everglow. One that we're definitely going to do is the first Reliant K album came out 25 years ago this year.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I wrote this down, and I don't know if we're going to do this or not, but the 50-year anniversary of Monty Python and the Holy Grail is this year. And I'm like, why did we watch this at every church trip? Like, no to
Yes.
like,
Oh, here it comes.
Christians love Monty Python.
They
Yes.
do. Rocket Summer, Hello Good Friend, has a 25-year anniversary. The final episode of McGee and Me celebrates 30 years this year. The album I'm most excited to make Katie listen to, because I know she has not heard it, is Earthsuit Kaleidoscope
Yeah,
Superior.
I'm coming on.
Yes,
20
yes. Let's go to the
25
mute
years.
math corner,
Hey,
guys.
Hey, look, come on over to the left here. Welcome to the Mute Math Corner. So this is where we talk about anything Mute Math or Mute Math related. Earthsuit was a band that comprised of Darren King and Paul Meany and also I believe Mitchell as well. And they went on to be
Kevin,
in
we
Mute
doing
Math,
all right
but
in the right here?
But originally, they were in a little band called Earthsuit. So, hey, Matt, if you want to have Brock and I on for that pod, we would love to be there, where we can be in both ears. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love for nothing more than to be in both the left and the right ear talking about Earthsuit.
Yeah.
We keep all the mute math in one ear.
That I will make that happen. I will make a note.
Brock, we're doing it. We're getting on Geekscape, baby.
I am
I'm writing it
Welcome
down
to the
right
network.
now.
Talk about stepping stones, boys. All right.
Yeah.
You guys,
And
see you later.
Brock.
If you're going, I don't know how wide your media scope is, but the Frank Peretti
Jesus
books,
riding
man.
on a white
Both the
horse.
adult Peretti books and then the kids. Did you guys have the kids Frank Peretti
Oh
books,
yeah, man.
which
The
were
Tombs of Anak,
terrifying?
that was intense.
I enjoy that
Right?
you're trying to bring us out of the Earthsuit corner, but that is not happening.
It's gone. I mean, you can stay over there.
One time.
All right. So I haven't had a chance to dive through all of your back catalog just yet, but I am going to be working my way through it over the next couple weeks.
Awesome.
Get ready for lots of mute math.
We've talked about
Furnace
Five
Fest.
Iron Frenzy.
Yeah.
We talked about Insiders. I mentioned a little bit of the Supertones. I'm curious, how often does the beloved South Park wannabe band B.O.B. Bunch of Believers come up on this show?
Non-zero, right? Have we mentioned them because they were a ska
Well,
act,
I think we
and
have
so
once
they're
or
in-
twice.
they're in our
Once or
wheelhouse.
they have
twice.
come up.
Once or twice. That's great band. Great. I'm sure as we go along, we'll talk more about them.
It's a ska world album. Not terrible. Has that
not
ska
terrible.
version of Not Ashamed by the Newsboys.
Oh, yes.
The weird call.
Because we needed another
yeah.
version of that.
Yes.
Because the world didn't deserve just one.
But that was this band, right? They had two albums, one just being a Christmas album called Ska La 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 La. And then they disappeared. And then a rapper came out, also named Bob, spelled the exact same way.
Yes.
And I believe the last I heard about Bunch of Believers is that they changed their name to short for Robert and never put anything out.
That's a really funny name.
Yeah.
That's how
It
you
should
do
have
it.
been
That's how you
Ert.
keep your you keep things differentiated.
But I love that that's what they changed their name to.
That is amazing.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
short
fantastic.
for Robert. That's I got to look that up. That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't even know how you get. I found them on MySpace. I was like trying to find them in like 2004, and I found a MySpace page for short for Robert, and I was like, oh, this is Bob. Like I looked up the songs and was like, oh, this is B.O.B. Cool. I found them. I don't think they
great.
did anything. It was kind of like there was that band Buck that also became Buck Enterprises.
Yep, love
and
Buck.
that first Buck album also really good. Like the ska bands coming out of the Christian scene weren't bad, but I don't think there was any bad ones. The swing stuff got weird. Like there was the W's, which was great.
Love
And
them.
then every other attempt at cashing on
Swing
the swing
praise.
revival was a miss.
The swing
remember-
revival was strange in general, though. I mean, the Squirrel Nut Zippers were weird.
I
Shape Pop
loved-
and Daddies, all of it
I
was
loved it.
strange.
I was all on board for the swing revival.
Yeah.
But
Big Bad Voodoo Daddy was awesome.
yeah, I mean, to me, it was the squirrel. Like we did Squirrel Nut Zippers Hell fairly
Yes.
recently on One Hit Thunder, and I found them performing on Viva Variety on Comedy Central, and I've probably rewatched that particular live performance because it's just like all of my worlds clashing. I'm like the Squirrel Nut Zippers and members of the state on the TV at the same time. How did this happen? And I missed it.
That's a North
So
Carolina band, Pete, if we're tracking it home.
Oh,
Squirrel Nut
thank you.
Zippers from Chapel
All right,
Hill,
so-
just for your list.
Write that down.
So North Carolina mentioned number.
Yeah,
All right, so that
yeah.
was North Carolina. mention number
14,062.
I think in that particular
1,007.
episode, I tried to find out if the Squirrel Nut Zippers, because they're a North Carolina band, if they provided the horns on Ben Folds' Whatever and Ever Amen. Because I'm like, they're from the same
Chapel
city.
Hill,
How-
yeah.
I'm like, how many clarinet players could possibly be in Chapel Hill in that music scene at the exact same time? But it wasn't.
good
There was
point.
like some Clemmer band that Ben Folds befriended and had play on Steven's Last Night, which is
Oh,
not my
yeah.
favorite song on that album, but Still a good song.
Did any of you all listen? All right, so speaking of the swing movement, did anybody listen to Lounge Freak, that album?
Yes.
Where
John
they turned
Jonathas, yeah, yep.
everything
the
into
CCM songs
lounge
into lounge.
music. They did
Got that one on
Blood.
my shelf. Yeah.
They did Punk Rock Show. By
But if I
MXPX.
can't swim after
Swim
40
after 40
days.
days.
Yeah.
They did Crazy.
He had like a
They
leopard
did
skin suit, right?
Yeah,
On the
it was
cover
quite
with like a
something.
grand piano or something.
Never going to be as big as Jesus Freak.
That's right.
Bannerman.
The craziest thing about that Loungefly album is that it's one of the few examples I can think of where the Christian music industry was ahead of the curve.
Right
on that
before
because
Richard Cheese.
because
yeah.
then Richard
Right.
Cheese came by and
Was it
proved,
before?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm positive.
I'm pretty sure.
I think Richard Cheese's first album was 2004, so it was pretty or like early 2000s. It was definitely in the 90s when they did Lounge Freak. But Richard Cheese proved that the only way to properly do lounge is to put as many curses as possible in the song. It's like
Guerrilla
just
radio.
doing a clean lounge version of the song is like, okay, great. Why did I buy this? Where's the comedy runs out after the first 30 seconds of the song.
Yeah, Richard Cheese is active 2000 to present, and Lounge Freak was 97. So, yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
I submit that 1997 was the best year, and it sounds like Matt, that was when you kind of picked up on some things, right?
It was 97 was definitely me discovering the tooth and nail side of stuff for sure. 96 was me discovering the just the Christian music market in general. And then like a year later, finding out like, oh, MXPX, what is this? And then just, I mean, again, we talked about Purple Door, but like Tooth and Nail would have a table at Purple Door where it'd be like 10 CDs for $100. And like Homeboy would just walk in with $100 and just buy whatever I could get my hands on.
Yep.
And yet there's still albums where I'm like, fuck, why didn't I buy that like Calbretto 13 EP that's like just the 8 songs that they couldn't put on the album and couldn't sell in Christian stores that I was so confident I would have all the opportunities to buy later on down the line and missed my chance. Now it's like $300 used on eBay or some shit. Like
right.
I've been there.
Hold on.
Just hovering on Discogs, waiting for the price to drop.
Hey, Kevin, I'll offer you $5
because that has that grandma song, the sweet little grandma song about being haunted by his grandmother's ghost. I love that song.
Yeah, I've got that. I've got like the Black Sheep stuff they put out before Calibretto.
Well, I remember when Calbretto broke up, and like just before Harley Poe, they like announced that they had broken up, and then just on their website, and I have all of these on their website. They're just like, here's every
like
demo we've ever recorded, and you could just download. Like it was like 15 or 30 like demos. Of Calbretto songs. It was awesome.
I grabbed all those. You know what they didn't have on there though? It was because Calibretto originally did "Don't Go Into the Woods" as a Calibretto song. They put out a 7-inch for it, and the B side of the 7-inch was a cover of 500 Miles.
Oh, okay. I did not hear that. That's the one I have not heard. That
which I have the 7-inch. I need to rip it at some point just so I can have it easily available. So,
right.
All right.
Is it time for a game?
Ooh, games. I like games.
Yes. When we have guests, we play games.
Oh, okay.
We call them
I'm
Squid
ready.
games.
Do I die if I get it wrong?
The stakes are high. The stakes are very high.
Because that's not taken. No, it's not taken. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard the term used before. So
So trying to keep it in the wheelhouse with our guest, we put you in a position where you're going to guess things about us.
Okay.
You're flying a little blind here because you don't know too much about us, but that's
half the fun.
Yep. So this time we have all selected an artist with their album, the top 3 or the first 3 that we connected with in the CCM world is children, youth, whatever. Like the ones that we owned or took ownership of, that weren't just in the house because the parents or their brother or sister were listening. Like these are like, okay, this is my musical identity. I affiliate with this, but in the CCM world, there are some repeats here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the list with you.
Okay.
And then you get to guess
who those 3
who
albums
goes
go
with
to?
which album. Yeah. So does everybody see the list?
And since this is an audio medium, I believe we should also go over it.
We will read them out loud. All right, so there's 4 of us, three albums each, so we're talking 12 total albums here. So we've got AVB's album, The Road.
That's a cappella vocal band.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The previously mentioned several times DC Talk self-titled. Our friend Carmen in his Radically Saved album. DeGarmo and Key of Forefront Records fame founders, The Pledge. The Swirling Eddies, Outdoor Elvis. The Cry with a K, What About Now? Carmen's Back with Revival in the Land. Again with the DC Talk self-titled, very impactful album. Striper and God We Trust. Here We Go Again, DC Talk self-titled.
Heaven bound. There you go.
That it sounds just like that on the record.
It does.
Were you on that record?
I was.
The Dynamics Twins, Word to the Wise. And then Newsboys Going Public. Well, the bonus are just for fun later. But these are the ones we're looking at. There's 3 per guy on here. So you can just start wherever you'd like, and I'm going to throw your guess up there, and then we'll reveal the right answers at the end.
Okay, so just to clarify,
Yes.
it's not like 2, 3, and 4 are one person's 3 albums. The albums are mixed
Correct.
up.
It is random.
Okay, it is randomized.
Well
okay,
done.
well
I think
then.
you got good odds on the self-titled DC.
I was going to
Talk.
say, so on the self-titled DC Talk.
Bang that one off right away.
Okay, so for that one, I'm going to go Jared, Pete, and Brock.
All
Not
right.
Kevin. Kevin loves New Jack Swing.
He's
Well,
just
that's-
one of the 2 honks.
And that's why I'm going to, for Kevin, I'm going to go with that Striper album.
Nice.
All right.
Okay. That's about as far as I've gotten here so far.
Yeah.
Okay.
And did we
Alright.
say, Matt, we let you ask each of us one question to clarify
Well,
if it's helpful.
Let me try to narrow this down a little bit more. I'm going to put Kevin down for the Pledge as well.
Mm.
I don't know why, Jared, but I'm going to say Newsboys for you.
I'm going public with this.
Okay.
I sing on this
Were you on
podcast.
that record?
Sorry, Matt.
All right. So now, all right.
Yeah,
So
News
let's say hypothetically, I've never heard of The Cry. What genre of music would you categorize The Cry as?
Would you call him almost like a what's between alternative and rock?
Alternative rock?
Yeah, that's probably
I mean,
it.
they are.
The
It's rock
intersection.
30, yeah. Rock 30,
So-
half an hour till alternative.
So when an alternative album and a rock album love each other very much, that's the
You get the cry.
And I'm just basing this off assumptions here. With Swirling Eddies, Outdoor Elvis, is it safe to assume that is maybe some type of Christian rockabilly type of sound?
I would.
They were kind of a like it's not far off. I would say they were they were comedic, right? They were kind of a not parody, but like style not even style parody. Like the lyrics were poking fun at some of the holes.
Lots
in
of satirical
culture.
stuff. Yeah.
Right,
Okay. Okay.
Like
Yeah.
songs like "Hide the Beer, the Pastor's Here."
right, yep.
I mean, I don't know if you heard of Daniel Amos, but that was kind of his
Gotcha.
band.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Kevin for The Cry, I think.
Okay.
I don't. Brock seems to know a lot about the Swirl and Eddies, so let's put Brock down for the Swirl and Eddies.
All right. All right.
He had a
Thank
lot
you.
of
Thank you.
He had a lot of confident answers for that question.
Or are
Um,
we throwing you off? I don't
I don't-
know.
I'm gonna say okay. So I think one Carmen is Pete, and the other Carmen is the final Brock.
Okay.
It's just gonna be a coin
How could
flip.
you?
I think it's gonna be a coin flip. I'm gonna say Radically Saved will go to Pete, and the other Carmen will put to Brock.
On a coin flip. I like
All
the way
right.
you work. I like the way you work.
All right, so that leaves a Jared and a Kevin.
Mm.
I feel like Kevin, just based on all the records behind him, is always going to be a little bit more alternative-y. So I'll say
That's a fair guess. That
That's a
works.
good-
yeah.
good
I
assumption.
mean, listen, the
Mhm.
spelling of Y's in the number 2 is making me think that Dynamic Twins aren't as alternative-y as the name implies. But I'm still going to put Kevin there just by process of elimination,
Okay.
and I'll
All
put Jarrett there in that AVB.
Interesting. All right.
Okay, we've been sorted.
Excellent. I'm Hufflepuff.
Same.
Yeah, so AVB is not Jared. So who would that be?
I can tell you it's not me because I didn't know who they were.
Yeah, I don't know who
Oh,
that is
no?
at all.
No.
Really?
That's me.
I tell you, if I had thought about AVB because the church is you, I would have. That was a very pivotal album for me back then, Brock. So well done.
And DC Talk self-titled, I am one of the three. So that's correct.
All right.
Ding, ding,
That's the
ding.
first one. Good. All right, so there you go, Jared. You can put there you go. All right, so
Yeah.
Carmen Radically Saved. I will tell you that was me. Radically good coin flip.
Ding,
Radically
ding, ding.
Saved.
Yes.
Radically Saved. Pointedly, if you have not heard this song, look up "The Soap Song" by Carmen.
Oh,
That
yeah.
song was one of my my pivotal moments in Cringe Christian, right there.
Okay.
Because
excited.
gone are the days of Leave It to Beaver. Not the only shining light, not one, but all the days of our lives. He took all of the soaps and put them into a song.
Love it.
What was your uncle? What was the Festus? There's a line about Festus that ends with Festus.
Gosh. Yeah. I
And
don't
your
remember
old
it off
aunt
the
or
top of my
something
head.
like that. Yeah.
Yep.
But I had that tape. Still have that tape.
Me too, actually.
The Pledge is me, actually. That was my
Okay.
very first album that I really cared about. That was my own. I was a huge DeGarmo and Key fan, which is also where DC Talk came from because they opened for DeGarmo and Key.
Can I get clarification? So, Brock, you were AVB or you weren't? Because I thought
Yes.
you said
I
you have no clue
was.
who they are. Okay.
No, I was.
No,
I was
I
very.
didn't.
I know everything about AVB.
Yeah.
Okay.
He knows everything that Kevin doesn't.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know who that is either. Okay. I got confused. I thought it was Brock who said, I don't know who this is, and then his name showed up next to it. I was like, I don't know
Right. No.
what weird game is happening.
I respect
mean
that we
one.
talked at the same time. Yeah, for sure. But definitely Brock. And I'm a close second on we'll write the encyclopedia or the Wikipedia article together, Brock.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Well, one note was on DeCarmo and Key, The Pledge. Was that with Destined to Win? Was Destined to
No.
Win on that album?
No,
Destined
destined to win, surrounded by the light.
Yeah.
Was that on Commander Sozo and the
I
Charge
think
of the
so.
Light Brigade? I think, or the self-titled.
We
The
can
Pledge
do that on a
had-
future episode. But
Yeah, I can talk about the Pledge as long as you want. I wore that tape out.
Matt, I don't know if you know. DeGarmo and Key brought out the keytar. That they were huge.
Nice.
They were huge with the keytar. So for 80s rock with the keytar, that was where I became in love with the keytar. And then Earthsuit and Mute Math brought out the keytar.
Oh, okay.
And-
We're back in the mute month.
Showbread.
So that's just
okay.
just to bring it.
Jared,
No, we're
should
not.
we go over to the
Nope, we're staying in
Gotta
both
cut
ears.
it.
We're staying in both ears because that's the only reference I'm making here. Okay.
Okay.
And Eddie DeGarmo had that huge long blonde hair, but then he had
Yes.
giant brown sideburns underneath it. But he had bleached it was like dyed blonde hair.
It was amazing.
And Dana Key
Def-
had the Uncle Jesse hair. Mullet.
As a historian of all that, definitely look up DeGarmo and Key.
I will definitely check that out.
They were real influential because Eddie DeGarmo
Huge.
and Dana Key were two of the four who founded Forefront Records, which is
Correct.
why
Gotcha.
DC Talk ended up on there because they
Gotcha.
kind of found them. They opened, so DC Talk opened on their first album tour for
It's
DeGarmo
amazing.
and Key, which doesn't.
DC Talk
match
was
at
also
all.
their roadies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they were.
I
They were.
legitimately thought you said early Tooth and Nail, and I'm like, I guess this was earlier than I knew, which is why I went with Kevin. I was like, Kevin seems like the Tooth and Nail guy, so maybe he knew some early pre-Blender Head release that I missed out on.
I respect that.
It's funny about Forefront not pushing mainstream because DeGarmo and Key was on MTV. Like they were like the first Christian band on MTV,
Yeah.
right? For 666, their video of it,
666.
like
Yep.
84 or something like that, 86.
All right,
Yeah, that
I'm
was-
writing all this down. These are
And-
going to be future
Yeah.
episodes for the
And
podcast.
MTV wouldn't play it because it was too controversial. And they because in the video a guy is burning.
Oh,
Right.
damn.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Yeah.
what did was it Dana Key who wrote the book? It was a riff. It wasn't Why Should the Devil Have All the Good Music, but it was something like that. It was about why rock was okay for Christians. Dana Key wrote one of those books in the 90s as well. But they were big names as became executives and producers and all of that behind the scenes, and then had their band out there as well.
All right.
All right, Swirling Eddies though. Is it you, Brock?
Swirling Eddies. That was me.
Evan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, definitely they were fantastic. Like real good at like just sarcasm, like just kind of poking fun at things, like I mentioned the Hide the Beer, the Pastors here. They also did a covers album, which is phenomenal. They did a great Carmen cover, which I love more than any Carmen song, but I mean, that's kind of a low bar for me.
Writing this down too. All right.
Yes.
Swirling Eddies, I gotta dive
And for
into.
Kevin, that's why everything else in his music collection exists, probably, right? Like it's one of the big texts of your musical taste.
Yeah, I mean it's like Swirling Eddies, the sense of humor that they've got in there, like it's kind of led into probably why appreciating that sense of humor is why I liked like They Might Be Giants and Weird Al and stuff like that. Like it's all kind of
so like if we were trying to expose somebody to the Swirling Eddies who maybe had never heard of them, maybe grabbing Milligan from Weird Algorithm would be like the right guy, someone who's really into They Might Be Giants and all of that stuff.
yeah,
Right.
like someone like just someone who really appreciates like kind of sarcasm and just kind of twisted, somewhat twisted humor and things like that. But yeah, they also did a on one of the Happy Christmas albums, I think. Didn't they?
Yes.
Or no, that was Lost Dogs, I think. On
Yeah,
the,
Lost Dogs did the Chipmunk song.
the Chipmunk song. Yeah, it's essentially the same guys.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that okay, got it. That's awesome. I think Swirling Eddies is going to be my big discovery from doing this.
Nice.
There you go.
That sounds right up my alley. All right, well,
And
the
DeGarmo
Cry.
and Key, of course. No, I'm kidding.
The Cry.
That's me. That's
It
me.
is.
Yeah. And The
Oh,
Cry,
all right.
because Matt, earlier you talked about like convincing your parents it was okay to listen to loud music because the lyrics were okay. I tried that with this thing that was between rock and alternative, and it still wasn't convincing enough. It didn't matter what the lyrics were. My parents weren't ready for it. So there we are.
Well, remember, when an alternative record and a rock record love each other very much, it's The Cry.
That's the most important thing.
Right.
Carmen.
Is this you, Brock?
Not me this time.
This is me.
Oh.
Carmen was huge for me, and I had to go back and double check, like, what was the album that was first? And I had to match up the years, and it was definitely Revival in the Land, but because Radically Saved was a big one, I had The Champion, and then ongoing, I bought everything from then on out. But I went
Well, don't
backwards
forget
after I first.
the DC Talk crossover, right?
Yeah. But I listened to the first, like this one, and then listened to the previous stuff. Sundays on the Way, because that was another one, right?
Yep.
So I went backwards. But this was the first entry point for me into Carmen, who became like, I was a Carmen guy for at least a decade after this, probably in the late 90s, I would guess. At some point it fizzled out. But
Well, I mean,
I saw him, I think I saw him in concert too, probably around this time at the Hampton Coliseum, because he used to play just Coliseums for free. So, I mean, there'd be 10, 15,000 people at these, like, it wasn't your irregular concert. The scale of it was incredible.
you were there for the Resurrection Rap, is what you were there. I mean, that was on that album. So,
But I saw him in the Hampton Coliseum as one of those a church group went, and from then on, I was just like blown away. And I was a Carmen guy. I think I saw him 3 or 4 times like that in different arenas because it was free. So every youth group would go because.
Who else was a Carmen guy? Was everybody's mom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the
Yes.
other big revelation here as well is that's it for your albums. There's 3 Jared albums, which means that I definitely have Newsboys incorrect.
You are correct about that being incorrect.
All right. So was I correct on Pete being one of?
Yep.
I will tell you that I was also a DC Talk. Yes, that's correct. So Striper.
Yeah. Who has Striper? Is it Kevin?
It is not.
My friend, that is me. That In God We Trust album I had on cassette, and I am a big Striper head.
All right. Well, I'm doing real bad on the Kevin picks here.
That's all right.
I will say I am older than all of them, so
Okay. Fair. Well, 2 out of 3 for Pete, though. I feel pretty good about
That's
that.
not bad.
That is.
That's not bad, my friend. That's not bad. Well done.
Kevin, were you the other DC Talk self-titled, or did I get this correct with Brock?
Nope, it was me.
God damn it.
Wait, it was you? I thought it was me. Oh, there's two of me
It
up
was-
there already. Never mind.
It was Brock. Oh no, you're right. It was you. It was you. You had.
I
it in
had that
your,
as my bonus. Yeah, that
it's in
was
your
kind of what I
bonus.
listened to before I started choosing my own music.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that was okay. Can I put Brock down for the bonus album real quick under there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we have to.
So all of us mentioned it in one way or another.
All of us mentioned that album, so I feel like we kind of have to like give it to him on.
Yeah. That's fair.
That's a bonus
DC
point.
Talk
is what that
influence is strong. Yeah.
We're just 3 honks. Nope, never mind. Not going
We're
any
just
further.
3 honks.
Nope.
Just
And a guy
three
from Oregon.
honks.
We're just 3 honks and a Peter.
I do have to say, while I think that particular album is the one that aged the worst of their
Mhm.
albums,
Oh, agreed.
I love Time to Jam.
Oh yeah.
Let's break it down like we used to. Let's
Used
give them
to.
a taste of the old style.
Yeah. Said the 20-year-olds.
Yeah. Oh my God.
On their first album,
Yeah.
Mhm.
like we used to.
Like we used to.
Yeah. They're going back to the old school on their first album.
That's right. I could perform the whole album, I bet. The big tragedy of DC Talk is that Valet Beat never got his recognition because they moved away from New Jack Swing. Free at Last was a hip hop record for sure, but New Thing and the self-titled were definitely in their own category. And so my theory here is that My Friend So Long is about Valet Beat. My Friend So Long for
Ooh.
Supernatural. Everybody's like, which member of the band is it about? It's about Valet Beat. They never gave him his due. That's my theory.
Yeah,
like
they
your theory.
they've never said who that song's about still.
The theory out there is that it's Amy Grant, and then later on it was
Absolutely.
and then later on the theory revert to Kevin Max, but and he sang about himself going back to the future. But
It's not out of the realm for Kevin Max.
No.
right.
We got to get him on here so we can ask
We
him.
do. Oh my gosh, let's get Kevin Max on. I'm sure he'd do it.
Get him on the pod.
Brock, make it happen.
Slide into those DMs.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
That album though is definitely one of those like defining. Like I remember the moment and like in
Yes.
the room, and they opened for DeGarmo and Key. I did not get to go to the DeGarmo and Key concert, but my friend did. And he shows up at my house. He lives down the street. We lived on Air Force Base. He comes in. He's like, "You got to hear these people. Like this group
Yeah.
opened, and they're amazing." He had the cassette, and I immediately dubbed it onto my own. I never purchased it, but I did dub it onto my own cassette because I was 8 or 9 or whatever it was. But that was like, I remember us in the room, him being like, "You have to listen to this," and then that was all I listened to, with some Pledge thrown in for a while.
Jared Freeze, convicted felon at 8 or 9. Okay.
The best part was
Copyright law.
my dad worked in a cardiopulmonary lab in the hospital, in the Air Force. And so back then they would record EKGs on a cassette tape because that was the technology of the time. So after they had used them, they just had all this. So my dad would just come home with
No
like
way.
boxes of cassette
No
tapes that
way.
had EKG heartbeats. And
Oh
that
my
was my
goodness.
supply to dub song music
Whoa.
onto.
Man.
These heartbeat, because if you just played them, it was just like boom, 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 boom. It was the sound of a
That's-
heart rhythm.
Yep.
And those
Incredible.
old tapes, that some of that would still be there in the background, so I can just hear like
For
I love rap
sure.
music. Like I call my boom my mom because I knew she was down. Boom,
Rhythms,
she was
yeah.
like grooving, boom, but didn't understand. Boom, how they making boom music when there ain't no band? Like it's like
When you're 8 years old, you can't buy your own stuff, so you got to
That's
use
right.
what you got.
oh, that's
I
good.
just used the old sermon tapes at the church.
Yes. Also a strong move.
That's good. I love
Okay,
that.
so I got one more chance to get a point here.
Yes,
Kevin,
do.
were you
Good one,
Dynamic
too.
Twins?
I was.
Yes.
Bubbo! Yay!
So I saw them. I went to go see DC Talk and the Newsboys at Gordon College, and Dynamic Twins, and there was also Heather and Kirsten opened the concert, and Dynamic Twins were two twins that rapped.
And they were dynamic.
And they were dynamic, and they were actually the best band at the show. Like, I left that show going, they're way better than DC Talk.
Nice.
And I think that was back in the Hell is for Wimps Newsboys era, I think.
Oh, yes.
Oh, right. So that wasn't a good Newsboy show either.
No.
Yeah, I feel like I was late to the Newsboys, and I never really connected to the Newsboys the way a lot of people did. But Going Public was the first one I heard. Someone gave me that record, but it definitely was, I think it's the album after that had like Entertaining Angels on it and the Woohoo song. I mean, that album, I'm like, that's really good. So yeah, Step Up to the Microphone. Love that.
Yeah.
And then honestly, when we were talking about bands that could have had a huge mainstream hit, I think it was the album after that had that song Million Pieces that I do not know. Like, I don't think that
Thrive,
whole
right?
album is good, but
their
that
last good
song,
record.
Yeah, that song, there's no reason why that song wasn't like a top 40 radio hit. Like,
so good.
It's not even particularly religious. Like, it's like you could have so easily just pushed that as a like feel good anthem. And I again, Forefront Records just constantly fumbling the ball on getting their bands on the radio with songs that were like ready made to be radio songs.
Right.
It was so much smaller than it could have been.
Yeah. Oh, I love that song. That might be my favorite Newsboys song, honestly. It's so catchy. And it's not like their normal singer, right? It's the blonde haired
Phil Joel.
Oh, right. That was a Phil Joel song.
Yeah. That was a Phil
the
Joel
sexy one.
jam.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. If there was one.
Right. Oh, man. Those long locks.
Yeah.
He was like the Christian Hansen brother. You're like, I'm like, who is that beautiful woman on the stage?
Yeah, the Hansen boys were missionary kids. They were the Christian Hansen brothers.
That is true.
The
And now they're
question I
getting
was
in
always
trouble
asking,
for their now they're getting in trouble for their leaked Pinterest racism, which is my
Is that
favorite.
right?
Hansen.
Really?
Oh boy!
Oh, no.
Check out
Okay.
check
I
out
gotta
the
write
One Hit
this
Thunder
down.
episode on Hansen.
All right.
During COVID, someone hacked.
Oh,
Zach
no. I did hear
Hansen's-
that episode. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Someone
it's
hacked
not
Zach
great.
Hansen's Pinterest, and he was just filled with racist and homophobic memes that he was storing. Which, like, the craziest way to have that information leaked is a hacked Pinterest board.
Seriously.
Like,
Yeah.
Bop. No.
Yeah.
no, because I went into that ready to defend Hansen as like a band that should be respected as very
Right.
talented.
Yeah.
And I was like,
well,
oh crap! It
yeah,
seems like
up
two
until
of
then-
these three guys suck.
They are musically talented, but that's awful.
Like,
Yep. Now it doesn't matter if they have a brewery called Hops.
I know that was a big fun fact.
I was going to say they have a decent beer, so.
Yeah, they have some decent albums. Shout It Out is great.
Yeah.
Do we have? So I know one of the bonus albums. If we're going down there,
Well, you have to
Well,
pick
you-
who did Going Public. I mean, this is going to be good for you.
Who's
Process
left?
of elimination here.
yeah, Brock, good call on that.
Yeah,
one.
yeah, there we go.
That's me. No, I celebrate not the entire Newsboys catalog, but the entire Steve Taylor produced Newsboys catalog. So
Yes.
everything from
Oh,
Not
please,
Ashamed out to
yes.
Thrive, and then the rest is kind of garbage on both sides.
Yeah,
Artistically, anyways.
I think that's fair. Yes, like I said, I've deduced that Brock is the self-titled DC Talk record.
Yes.
Yep. Well done on that. Well done. Good. Elementary, my dear Watson.
This
Yeah.
is just two of us to make this more fair.
I didn't know that I could give some bonus albums, so I am not on this list.
Okay, so this is mostly Jared and Brock here.
Yeah, there's just a couple people on here that it was unprompted and we did it on our own.
Okay, well then I'm gonna say Jared that you're the Carmen one since Brock already has a Carmen one in there.
No, I actually myself and Pete, I already had the Carmen one, so this is Brock's Carmen.
Oh, I
We're
was
very
looking at my
similar. We're
Oh, sorry,
very
I was looking at my
similar. Yeah.
predictions and
Yeah.
not the actual
No,
answers.
it's all good.
But there's a lot of crossover amongst us.
I love that you wrote down Carmen there.
Yeah, I like
Oh,
that.
yeah,
you
I
wrote
sure
Carmen.
did.
Carmen picked his own album. Good job.
That's
Always
probably
did.
true.
He always
That's
did.
his favorite one of his own works.
Do you feel Carmen in this place today?
Yes.
Oh, he's here?
Oh shit.
Back. It's the
Just
champion.
with a few of the things that Brock has said about like like the artisticness of things, I'm gonna say he's also Rich Mullins.
Oh.
Not a bad guess, although there
Oh.
is a bigger Rich Mullins fan on this pod than I.
Okay,
And it's
Yeah,
not
actually-
Kevin and it's not Pete.
So
Okay.
the same
We
kid
are very
who,
similar.
the same kid who brought the self-titled DC Talk over to my house also brought Winds of Heaven, Stuff of Earth, that tape over to my house, or at like the same period, and
Is
that
there-
hooked me immediately.
So like Rich Mullins is definitely one of those people I have liked the songs as other people have covered by Rich Mullins. I appreciate the story of Rich Mullins, but I've never dug into Rich Mullins. Is Winds of Heaven, Stuff of Earth a good starting point if you want to kind of dip your toe into it a little bit more?
I'm a big fan of just don't worry about the chronology. If you want to appreciate something, go to Liturgy, Legacy, or Ragamuffin Band because it's
Okay.
so good.
That's
And
super
once
good.
you've kind of bought into the quality, because it's 80s, 90s, the music, some of it, is like, I think that's why some of the covers are easier to listen to. Is
Okay.
the musical styles can be improved on. So when you go way back, it's kind of like the some of it to listen all the way through is a little bit, I think,
Immature.
challenging.
Okay.
Maybe if you just go all the way back to the beginning, you're like, why are people into this so much? But if you get like the Liturgy Legacy, I think this is my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah.
other
And
guys?
if you go down to the end, I would say the Jesus record was
Yeah.
the kind of post in memoriam, post death. But the Jesus demos is just him and a cassette deck on the Navajo
Yeah.
reservation with like a guitar and a piano. And that was like, I never cared for the production on his record, so I never got into it. But I listened to that first, and it was just him and his cassette deck is kind of what got me into it. So.
That's like the Rich Mullins, Nebraska. Like,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just- okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Then I'm gonna go. Okay, so I got two left here. I don't know, Brock. I'm gonna say you're the Michael W. Smith and Jared's the Take Six.
I would be, but I don't think I submitted that one to you, Jared. Did I?
You didn't send it to me. They're all
Because I'm
me.
looking for that one. On
Okay.
Vinyl. I just really expect.
Okay.
That Take Six album is great, and that Michael W. Smith. Michael W. Smith would have been one of my honorable mentions as well because I had that album, one of my first ones.
I had to give it real consideration, to figure out my three. And I went to look at when did these albums come out? Like, what was the actual entry point? And that's what settled it for me. Of like, oh, Take Six was a little bit later. Michael W. Smith was a little bit later. I was like, okay, these others were first.
Yeah, it's more based on age. Yeah.
I never got too deep into Michael W. Smith. Obviously, Friends was unavoidable because that was like
Right.
kind of a rare, like, bit of a mainstream crossover type song. But I will say one of the first songs besides that Supertone song to jump out at me on WoW 1999, and another one that I think could have been a huge radio hit was Love Me Good. That song also just like perfectly fits the sound of 1999.
What a
at that
cool
time.
song. I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole record, actually, that whole album is probably, I think, his best.
Okay, then
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
I'll just buy that one day.
Yeah. Actually, I just did a podcast about that. Look at this. I have my cassette and CD copies
Yep,
here on the
I
desk
remember
with
that
me.
face. I remember that face staring at me in the
that
bookstores.
5 o'clock shadow.
Which podcast did you do without me with Michael W. Smith?
It was the In Everglow show with the king of CCM Twitter, Eric McClanahan,
Oh
right.
man,
produced by the
Alright.
great Kylan Savage.
All right. Because I love me some Smitty. It's time to get witty. So hit me. Speaking of DC Talk and Michael W. Smith,
Yeah, man. Toby McKeon was a producer on Change Your World, and
Yep.
wrote parts and whatnot. So something
did.
else. Yeah,
He did.
he was everywhere.
They guested on Change Your World. So I mean, he was there.
Yeah.
Toby.
And that was in the New Jack Swing phase for DC Talk. So
Mhm.
very versatile, that Mr. Mac.
All right.
And he was back. No slack on the DC track with Jack. Yeah.
Beyond
Beyond
comprehension.
comprehension.
I believe that you failed to mention that we're done with that.
Brock's got to go, so he's got to give
Goodness.
us.
Not
our
only are we
sign
done
off
with
to
that,
slide
we're
in
done
there.
with
done with
my
Brock.
time before my boys have been beating each other up for 2 hours. They've loved it, but it is time for them to go to bed. So well, that's the news from Lake Scabagan, where all the men are listening to DC Talk, all the women are listening to Carmen, and all the children are listening to the Swirling Eddies, which are above average.
Oh, onward, pickle soldier.
Good job, guys. Another perfect podcast.
Oh, that's hilarious.
All right. I'm the guy with the time limit. Matt Kelly, if you want to stick
Yep.
around with these guys, they'd love to talk to you. So I'll let you guys sort that out.
I'll talk
Matt
a little
Kelly,
bit
it's
longer.
great to meet you.
It's
Yeah.
great to meet you too, sir.
Yeah. Thanks for what you do.
Of course. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
Yes.
Get one good whack in with the pillow, Brock, before they go to bed. Can't miss out on the whole pillow fight.
Oh, that's good. All right, we'll take that screen off. There we go.
Yeah, it's gone. Now we can. I forget because I make my view bigger so I can still see what I want to see. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it happens. It happens.
I realized like 3/4 of the way through, I'm like, oh wait, I can just toggle back to just the cameras. I don't have to look at the spreadsheet anymore.
Wait, you could? Dang it!
Yeah, they're up the. Well,
I
see,
know.
Pete, on a Mac,
We're only in year 1, not 10.
Just remember, when an alternative. No, I'm not going to bring that up again.
When a Mac and an Android have a baby, they don't.
They don't.
Yeah, they're not compatible. The cables
That's
don't work.
taboo. That's,
That's right.
yeah, the cables don't work. That's good. Oh
They
my
don't
word.
fit. They do not fit.